these wonderful people for taking their time out to connect and be with us tonight. We almost didn't get Scotty, but he's pulled out a few things out of the hat and got us here tonight. Christian so far got the best dressed award, but if you guys sort of have a different opinion during the night, I think Tom's coming up with a quick second, and I don't know where the scarf's gone, but it was doing it for me, Tom.
I know.
The scarf was good.
There it is.
Wonderful.
Miike's far prettier than all of us. So
whatever. Good evening, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Yeah, and we can see you all too, by the way. Just letting you know.
Oh.
Wait, we can?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a bit of a reminder to our host that if they needed a toilet break to not take their camera with them, just in case. We saw a little bit more than we needed to.
Who was that?
What's that? No, you've all been instructed, so
okay.
no excuses now. So it's all on you if you forget about that one.
Right.
So I was trying to think, like I can't think of another time where I've come across the opportunity to have a panel like this together. Like it's obviously a bit of a specialized genre to some extent, but it's definitely one of the fastest growing. It's certainly been around for a long time, all the way back to early balloons and different sort of areas that we're not so familiar with. And there's a grandfather himself, Mr. Richard Waldendorp, that's sort of done more than all of us combined about 6 times over. I think he's been flying like 60, 65 years. Christian, what do you reckon? How long?
I don't know. He's definitely old enough to be been flying 65 years. So yeah, I don't know. I've never actually asked the question. I've only met him once, and he was a lovely guy. But he came to an exhibition that we did on Shark Bay. This is with the Antique Five Boys, Pete, Tone, and Les, and my brother. And he came up to Tony and Peter and said, these are not photographs. They're too colorful and too bright, and okay, thanks, Richard. Cool.
Well, I'll tell you another story, Christian. We invited Richard to write the foreword for our Cutty-Thunder Lake yearbook, and he kind of said, "You realize I will give you a very honest foreword, yes." And he started hinting at, I'm not into Photoshop and I don't want to see anything. And we were just like, oh my goodness. So we started scratching our head. Actually, maybe we'll get somebody else to write it, because if he wrote it, we didn't want to dishonor him by not putting it in. But if he gave us a hard time, it probably wouldn't do well for selling books. So I think it is 60 plus years in the air, actually. I think, because is he almost 90 or in his 90s now?
I don't know, but I believe the first plane he went up in was a tiger moth. So yeah, that probably about right.
I think he's over 90. I looked it up the other day.
Yeah, it's like
he's into his 90s. Yeah, unbelievable.
And how many books does he produce? Is it 30 or something? High 20s?
Probably just as many as Tom.
Coming from you, dude. I'm just trying to keep up with you.
Well, come on. It was actually Matt Palmer reminded me the other day that Jackie Rankin actually won Australian Photographer of the Year with an aerial portfolio.
Yeah, She won landscape photographer 2 years in a row, 2003 and 2004, I believe it was. Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. Precedence well there. And we've had...
You might see one of her photos tonight.
Oh.
Did you steal one of hers as well, Tom?
Yeah, I did. Got to get good content from somewhere.
No, I think Jackie won... Sorry, so we've had two in the last 5 years of the Australian Professional Photographer of the Year have been abstract aerial folios.
Yep.
So we had somebody sort of having a bit of a go at us about mentioning that it's one of the fastest growing genres in landscape photography, and I still haven't quite got a response from them as to why they had to go about that. But
no, it was, I think it was probably a little bit of a misunderstanding and maybe a quick response without thinking about it in depth, because I saw that. But
I think it was more the person was objecting to the idea that it's new. Without actually reading that you never said it was new. You just said it was one of the fastest growing genres, and that's an absolute fact.
Yeah. Welcome to the internet.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Blurred lines.
Is that what we're on? Is it the internet? Oh my god.
Wait, it's the interweb, not the internet.
Interweb. Yeah. Well, we let a bit of chit chat line out for the first sort of 5-10 minutes while people sort of join up. But I might give us all a quick breather, and I'll start with a short video just to maybe set the scene, and so people get more of a visceral kind of understanding of what we're kind of talking about from a more practical point of view. And this video is a few years old. It was actually put together by the ABC art show, The Mix, and they've been a great supporter of my group, the Light Collective, and we've been doing a number of aerial projects and high conservation projects in the last 5 or 6 years, heavily inspired by Christian and the ND5 mob. And actually, yeah, Luke's come on board for our latest project, and Matt Palmer too, actually. So that's pretty exciting, and that's partway through. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to throw this video on because I just think it might just prompt things a little bit or set the scene a little bit for the rest of the night.
All right.
Don't forget to tick those tick boxes as well, Paul.
Tick the tick boxes. Which ticks we ticking?
And close any windows that might be up that we don't want to see.
How's that? Is that working?
Yep, great.
It's stunning in its vastness, but if you look closely, the real beauty is in the detail. And that's what a group of Australian photographers known as
very quiet.
Capture. So
did you tick the tick boxes?
The camera gear into a tiny doorless plane and took to the sky.
Which is a tick box, Lee?
The optimize for sharing video box.
Oh crap! Where is it?
I know.
When you press share,
It's got no. I've got no audio.
And almost detail.
Almost bland.
Hey!
That's better.
As we raise the camera up to our eyes and start seeking out these kind of intimate details, all these other patterns and shapes start to reveal themselves. By just capturing the photography, we get to know the lake on a much more intimate level than what we would have just having done a scenic flight over the lake.
I'm not looking at works that I'd usually see in the National Geographic story about Lake Eyre, you know what I mean? It's a very different landscape photography that you've achieved here.
Yeah, I think we wanted to produce something really abstract. We purposely left the sky, the horizon out of the images to create these really abstract, modern art photography pieces, if you like. And then let the viewers kind of interpret the shapes and the colours and the textures in their own personal way to try and build up that connection that way.
So all of these are from the air, all the shots are from the air?
All of them.
How do you achieve that?
With a fair bit of courage. Sticking your head out a window into a 2 km/h wind force with a $10,000 camera in your hand takes a little bit of guts. We're in usually fairly small light planes, mainly Cessnas. All of them we negotiated to get the doors taken off. So literally the soundscape of being in this plane is it is almost physically impossible to communicate with anyone other than hand strokes, elbows, and over there and turn around and lean over. So you've got to negotiate your communications a lot earlier beforehand.
I'm gathering the plane's then on an angle, because you said you're leaving the horizon out, so you've got to tip the plane so you're just looking down.
Yeah,
right?
so we will spot something of interest, like a algae bloom or these beautiful intricate sand patterns here, and we'll ask the pilot to bank and then start kind of looping around. And we might even have to ask him to raise up another 1,000 feet so we can capture it within the frame. A lot of the lenses we were using were fixed focal length, so we used the plane to go up and down as our very expensive zoom, essentially.
You're a bit blurry, coming out about 500.
Exactly.
No, stop there.
Yeah, perfect. We got it.
Our bigger project is RGB, red, green, blue. The RGB being the archetype bedrock actual physical structure of what we're creating the images with. Adobe RGB is the file that we're actually creating and printing. And RGB together, red, green, blue, in combination creates about 16 million colours, and it's a palette that we work with in the digital realm.
It's there what they're doing.
So initially the idea was to do one red, one green, one blue and make it a trilogy. We would pick something really iconic or high conservation value that has a great level of interest and mystery and personal intrigue to us and take it on. And why not start at the beating heart of Australia? Why not go to the core of red? If you look at where Lake Eyre sits on the map, it's almost in the heart of this landscape. It's at the lowest point of the entire physical structure of this land. It's massive, and its immensity and complexity is brought up in our images here in a way that is told actually through its detail rather than its obvious grandeur. Ultimately, we're all landscape photographers at heart. That's our greatest passion. And as we all know, and we're not a political group, but at the same time we're aware that those amazing wild areas are disappearing. And if we can support either the ownership or the conservation, or by evoking a sense of connection on a deeper sort of level, or an intimacy, or a window that you can relate on a way you didn't expect to be able to through our imagery, then we're succeeding in what we want to do. We're looking at potentially green and blue next. Blue, we're looking at Great Barrier Reef, and green, we're looking at the Tarkine rainforest as two potential options. Both areas of very high conservation value. They're deeply under threat, but they're also incredible artistic palettes for us to apply ourselves to, and maybe interpret in ways that haven't been done before. So I couldn't tell you what the work's going to be, but I can tell you we're going to be putting ourselves right into the meat of it and see what comes out the other end.
There you go. Well, that last comment could probably be interpreted a few different ways. So that's it's quite funny watching that. I haven't seen it for years, and to think of how even that group and even the genre itself has progressed in the last sort of 5 years since it was photographed has been quite interesting for me today. But I'd like to sort of quickly go through one by one. There's a lot of us on the panel who assume we sort of know who everyone is, but there's probably going to be a lot of people that may not have met some of our panel tonight. So I'm Paul Holan, and Luke Sharkey is the co-host, and Nick Monk. And we've been, it's our 7th week now. And each week we sort of pick a specific kind of genre or topic to really sort of get stuck into. And myself in particular, I've been bitten by the bug of aerial photography a long time ago, and it's been a huge part of my life for about 15
hanging out
years.
for a while, haven't you, Paul?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, a little bit of arm twisting from Lukey. When's it going to happen, mate? And so these guys, absolute credit. I know all these guys personally, and I've spent a lot of time with some of them individually in a very special way. And it's Tom sort of took me under his wing a long time ago. The first time I sort of got onto this sort of realm of the more professional realm, and Scotty's been probably my wingman, literally and physically and figuratively, since as long as I've been serious about this.
Yeah,
Mieke is deep. Yeah, Scotty, that's you, mate. So Scotty's from Perth in WA, and I will never forget the first time I met him. I was flying over to judge the West Australian Photography Awards, and I checked in with my guys from a Light Collective and said, is there someone over there I could maybe hook up with and get up some mischief or do some shooting? And they went, we know this guy Scotty, and I'd never met him before. And about, 20 minutes later, I'd sent a few messages, and he started organizing 2 back-to-back 4-day trips with 4-wheel drives and pilots and all these different areas around Australia. And I was like, I haven't even met this guy yet. We went out and did the most epic shooting I'd ever done in my life up to that date. And I actually just came back pre-COVID from doing another epic trip with Scotty in earlier this year, which was pretty amazing. So that thread's still continuing.
Yeah.
So Scotty's been a bridesmaid, as it were, for the Australia Landscape Photography Year, 2 years running. I think he had the highest scoring folio, but he didn't quite get the nod. And he's won is it IPA, Scotty? Which one?
Yeah, IPA, and I don't know now. I mean, the international competitions are always a good opportunity to sort of throw images that might have not done so well here or have done well, and see how they go internationally, which is always quite different as well. What does well here can sometimes not do well internationally, or vice versa. So Tom just took that out as well last year, I think, IPA.
So Scotty, you've been slightly without a camera, but you've just upgraded, I hear.
I have, yeah. I got myself a Fuji GFX 100, so I have a camera again. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
He did say, I did remember saying I might be able to borrow it at some stage, Scotty. Is that right?
Did I say that? No, yeah. I mean, look, for aerial photography, it's having those extra megapixels is priceless. I guess from the ground stuff and, nailing in one shot, it doesn't matter as much. But for aerial photography, to have that extra real estate and areas to crop into is very nice. I can't wait to use it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what you create from that, my friend, and hopefully doing it next year in a seat at some stage.
Yeah, Yeah, when we're all allowed out.
Yeah, soon Tassie's opening up on Friday, apparently. Hallelujah.
The people that live in Tassie.
So Tom's been a bit of an aficionado for aerial photography for a very long time as well. And as I was saying, Tom Putt sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, sort of took me under his wing when I first kind of roped into the AOPP, which has been a really productive and really wonderful part of my coming out into the world. Like I've been shooting a long time before that, but I kind of felt like I was the only person in the world doing it, as a lot of landscape photographers do. And then all of a sudden there's this incredible community, and Tom was sort of at the beating heart of it at the time. And because I don't know what he saw in me, but he took me under his wing and sat me on his awards table and introduced me to a million people. And I watched how he judged, and I've been watching and doing it. And we went out and did I remember we did a workshop together, didn't we, Tom? And
we did, yeah, Carragini. Yep.
I never got hired again, so I must have really screwed up.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But I enjoyed it, Tom, you know.
We had a great time. So did I, man.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about your relationship with aerial photography, just briefly?
Yeah, you know, like when I give presentations and I talk about my journey in photography, I always start at the overland track that I first walked in March 1997, so 23 years ago, as being my first official, you know, serious landscape photography shoot. But in fact, I was reminiscing about my journey in aerial photography, which is no doubt being more recent than not. But then I did my first shoot even before that overland track shoot, which was Hawaii in 1996. I was over there photographing the Hawaii Ironman triathlon for the first time. And we nicked across the other side of the island on one of our days off to actually fly in the helicopters over the volcanoes that spew out the lava, and then it pours down the various channels and goes into the ocean and creates those huge steam clouds, etc. And so I just remember that very fondly as taking lots of photos during that particular flight. I think I was right next to the window. So that's about as far back as I can remember doing aerial photography. So that was October 1996. So yeah, I hate to think how many times I've probably been up in planes and helicopters, etc. since then. It's been a great journey. I've loved it. Continue to love it.
Yeah, it continues the operative word, although not so much the last few months.
No.
Somebody hit the pause button.
Yep.
Yeah, but someone needed to slow Tom down. He did too many flights last year, so
there was a lot of flights last year.
Yeah, I think he did more flying than I did, Tom. Come on.
I flew every month of the year last year, I think, bar one.
Yeah.
Probably December. No, even December I flew because I hired a plane here on the Mornington Peninsula and shot most of my new book that's about to come out. So yeah, I'd spent a lot of time in planes. It's a wonder why I'm still here, to be honest.
Yeah, you must have quite a big,
taken me down.
Must have quite a good credit card there, Tom.
It gets a hammering. Yeah, absolutely. No, there's no room on it. Believe me.
So, Christian, you get to take dibs on the earliest. Have you got up there earlier than Tom?
No, I don't even think I actually took my first commercial plane flight or any flight until I was like 21 or something like that. So, mind you, that
wasn't that long ago.
10 years ago.
Come on. Yeah. He puts those grey tips in specially, look, to make him look more distinguished.
30 something years ago. I think when I did my first serious aerial photographs was in about 2009, and we would I was asked to do a project up in the Pilbara, which became the Pilbara project, and that's where I got together the ND5 boys, because I wanted to work with Pete Sway, and because everyone knows Pete and loves Pete. Les Walking, because he's probably the smartest man I've ever met in photography, and Tony Hewitt, because Tony is a creative genius, you know, and my brother, who is doing just starting out in video and doing good stuff. So we, as we were flying into Karratha, you've got the salt farms there in Dampier, and I looked down, I thought, wow, those things look really cool from the air. So we decided that part of what we would do is hire a plane and just go over and fly that. And that was the first time that I really looked down from a plane with the intention of taking a photograph. And we're all shooting phase ones at the time, and it was great. But I got the last flight in that, and we decided, we're up there in the Pilbara. It gets pretty windy in the mornings. You get really strong easterlies. So the first guys went out and they got the smooth conditions, and every flight, because we go out for an hour, every flight, my flight turned up, she was about 10 o'clock, I guess, by the time I got in the air, and it was bumpy as all hell. And I just remember just holding this camera going like this and going, how the hell am I going to get the shot in this? And we got some, and that was it. I was kind of hooked after that. It was like, yeah, this is amazing, just looking down on that landscape and just seeing those aerial abstracts that just blew my mind. So yeah, and ever since, it's just, you're looking down, you just can't beat it. It's something that's so nice about being up there and looking at the earth below. Very creative.
Yeah, so Christian, in my mind, is easily one of the premier aerial photographers, or landscape photographers in the world. And for those of you who don't know his work, he's been running an incredibly successful, probably one of the longest running galleries in the history of Australia. Is it, Christian, in terms of landscape photography?
I think Ken Punger's been going longer than me, but 20 years I've had galleries. I first, started 20 years ago, and I've only ever closed it, and that was just recently for 5 weeks during the COVID thing. Otherwise, I haven't it's been open every day apart from Christmas and what's that other religious holiday we have?
You can tell me go to church every Sunday.
I might have met Christian. Did you win maybe Australian Landscape Photographer of the Year? I think maybe the first year I met you. I think.
Yeah. I think you were probably 12 or 13 at the time, and that was a while ago. It was back in 2011, and I haven't had any luck since.
That's
2011.
Right. Yeah, tell me about it. My first year was my best year as well.
He's stopped entering now. He's climbed Everest, and he doesn't need to do it again. So he's just said, bugger it.
No, there was less competition back then. There's so much more competition these days. So.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, Christian was smart. He entered the International Landscape Photography the year before people knew about it and won it. So I never even heard of it. So I was just like, what competition? I didn't know about that.
I'll tell you about that. I'll never forget that, because it was pretty much hush-hush or not very well known. And there's a lot of Australian photographers who did very well that year, 2014. And I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to say this or not, but when it came down to judging the winning portfolios, it was between Christian and I, and it went to a 3-2 vote. And so I'll never forgive you, Christian, for beating me by one vote, because I reckon that was my only chance that I'd ever have at winning that competition, and you just ruined it for me. So thanks, mate.
And the funny thing is, I think I only got one photo in the top 100, and still managed to win it somehow.
Yeah, and I had 3. Oh well, that's okay. We still love you.
Boxing rings outside. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a very esteemed lady on the panel this evening, Miss Mieke Boynton, and I feel like of all of us, this is my personal opinion, she probably has the most depthful and even spiritual relationship with aerial photography and landscape and places, partly just from being who she is and where she's lived. And I don't feel like I can say more than that because I'm speaking on your behalf, Mieke, but it's something that I see and feel come through your work in particular. And I think it's partly because I kind of relate to the world in that way quite a lot as well. But it really makes your work sort of stand out for me personally. And I'm always very intrigued by the way you title your images and the sense of place and relationship and respect and honoring that you have for these places is quite phenomenal.
Thank
really
you, Paul.
Just permeates through everything you do. And and I obviously, we all really admire your drive and passion as well as amazing. And the way you treat your friends and people like Tanya, I'm a great admirer of as well. Actually, I'd personally love to have her on the show, but I don't know if she'd be into it or not.
Well, actually, I have to credit Christian with my aerial photography, because I went on his workshop with Nick Rains in 2012 at Home Valley Station, and Tanya and I actually did that workshop together. And Tanya had a fair bit more experience than I did, but Christian got us up in a helicopter. And I think the first half, I was just so excited to be in a helicopter that I just couldn't even concentrate on taking the photos, because it was just such a thrill. Unfortunately, I don't think we'd been very well prepared for the settings of the camera, and I only got one good shot of the whole thing. Everything else was out of focus. So
It's poor tuition. I'd ask for
Nick's
money.
fault.
Ask for your money back.
At least you remembered your memory card. Paul's forgot that a couple of times.
Hey, once.
I don't know if once. I was at once. So
nice.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is when you're up there, it's too late. Like you have to do so much preparation for aerial photography, you know, to make sure you even give yourself a chance to get any shots. So, you know, I was very grateful to be given a helping hand in the beginning, and I learned a lot from that flight. Not necessarily in a good way, but I certainly learned for the next flight that you need to be really well prepared. And you know, yeah, it's a very niche genre, but it's, as you said, fast growing. And we're all of us, I think, so far have mainly talked about flying in helicopters and planes, but obviously aerial photography now includes a lot of drone work, and I'm quite interested to hear from both Luke and Christian, you know, comparatively speaking, about what they do. Personally, as you say, Paul, because I learned photography living in the Kimberley, I do take that sense of place with me with my aerial work, and I'm sensitive to all of that, but and I just love flying. But yeah, I just think there's some incredible work that's coming out of places that are not necessarily conservation places. Like Christian's got some absolutely insane, and Scott's got some amazing work from and you've got some amazing work from like tailings dams and stuff like that, that are very much you know, a very different type of abstract, because they're not natural, they're man-made to a certain extent. But yeah, I love all abstract aerial photography. I just think it's beautiful. It's very, very artistic, and I think all of the art elements, you know, it's the closest we've got to painting, but we're painting with nature.
Well, I kind of feel like the painting is done for us by nature in aerial photography, probably more than just about any other genre. I mean, if you really put your eyes and ears to the ground and see what's out there, it's just unbelievable, the interconnectivity and the complexity of what nature can present.
And we're so spoiled.
You can't relate to it on the land. You'll just drive past it and won't even know it's there.
It teaches us as well. I mean, from aerial photography particularly, I've learned so much just because I've taken a photo of something and then got back, looked at the edits and gone, what is that? You know, what's that rock? Why is that color like that? Why is a tailing pond like that? And from it, I mean, I learned a lot about tailing ponds. When I first shot it, I just thought, well, that looks kind of cool and abstract. And then it made me go and look into it and realize, okay, that's not very good for the environment. So I've learned a lot from aerial photography itself and about the land that we live on.
And I guess does that also then help you understand better times to go and photograph those landscapes from the air as well, because you understand them a bit better and you know that maybe it's going to be different colors at certain times and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely, Luke. It's just it's cool, you know. You just sort of it gets me excited about learning about it, and then when I do learn about it, you realize, okay, well, maybe that time is better to go. But the other thing a lot with the tailing dams, they're one of the coolest things because they are just different just about every 3 or 4 months. So you know, it's never going to be the same, which makes special photos from there really special. Because you know, whereas some things like in Shark Bay, you know, they may be the same, they change very slowly over 2 or 3 years, but the tailing dams tend to change very quickly. So when you really get something special, it's really cool because you know that you know, it's probably not going to be there in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, and I think also we're even researching, like, I don't know about you guys, but I do a lot of my research using Google Earth, and you know, that's from probably years ago most of the time, the imagery. And then, you know, like I went and flew over Lake Lefroy in December last year, and I was expecting it to look a certain way because that's what it had looked like on Google Earth, but there'd been a huge rain the night before and it didn't look anything like what I'd seen on Google Earth. So, you know, and everyone who's shot the Kimberley would know that the tides have a massive, massive impact on all of those areas. So, you know, you can be very well prepared and then completely be surprised by what you see, and not necessarily in a bad way because those areas usually are pretty magical anyway. But yeah, you can be completely unprepared for what you're shooting.
It's like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish my intro on Mieke because I haven't quite finished. So Mieke was Victorian Landscape Photographer of the Year. Was it twice or?
No, just the once. That's pretty
close.
Put her down for this year as well.
Yeah.
Very consistently in the top 101 for the International Landscape Photographer of the Year, and she very recently, was it last year, won the International Panel Awards, and I think it's the first Australian woman, the first Australian.
First woman and first Australian.
and first woman.
Goodness me. And
with 3 aerials. Yay!
Yeah.
Well done, you.
So,
congratulations.
So we've got quite a panel. I'm gonna follow up on that story with Scotty. So I remember quite about it when I first really started seriously getting into it. I found myself strangely, because I'm a landscape photographer and a wilderness photographer by heart, and I have been for a long time. And so that's what I was initially setting out to capture is that really, I mean, the world just changes. Your perspective and the interrelationship of everything is completely different when you're up in the space from the air, and the kind of things that you really aren't sort of aware of how they interrelate in particular just comes to life as soon as you shift your perspective up. There's so many things that, particularly in a place like Australia and West Australia in particular, which is so flat, that you can just travel past and really not really understand as intricately how things evolve and work together. And all of a sudden you come up and some little patch on the ground, you realize it's connected to this hugely intricate system of root structures or streamlines or volcanic plateaus or the way the different creeks and estuaries kind of work together, and it's a really beautiful way to sort of evolve your understanding of the complexity of nature and just how interconnected everything is. So I feel like it's kind of a spiritual thing in a way. We're one step closer to heaven physically, but kind of literally as well. It's a very privileged position that hasn't really been very accessible for a long period of time for our species. It's particularly from a mobile perspective, apart from getting up high in the mountains. So it's quite a privilege, and I personally have found it extremely intriguing that the indigenous people of this land for tens of thousands of years have been presenting their relationship and understanding for this landscape through their art as from an aerial perspective. And I've always wondered, and how does that work, and what's going on here? Like, they're on the flattest continent on the planet, and there's no physical way they could have seen these structures from this point of view. And I've had a few old fellas and elders just tell it to me straight. So we're traveling our dreams, bro. They're basically talking about astral travel and the capacity for them to move and to see, the land and the world from this perspective that is beyond probably most of our Western cultures, even potential belief systems. So who knows? But I have found it a very intriguing parallel. And the times that I've shared the bodies of work that I've done, particularly the Lake Eyre body of work, is we went on Koori Radio and we invited some of the elders and crew to come into the exhibition, and they all said the hairs went up on the back of the neck and said, you got sacred country here, brother. As in, like, we knew we had something special and we felt it intuitively and we're drawn to it in our own sort of sense of openness. But, to get more of an understanding and awareness from a cultural point of view, I think would be really empowering. And as much as we had the intention to do that, it rained so hard and the roads got shut down and we couldn't go visit any of the elders or any of the people we were hoping to meet. And we had to sort of do that sort of retrospectively to some extent. But I'm going to jump back to an image just to start a story rolling on how I got into aerial photography. And I'll do that just by sharing my screen. And it's quite a fun story, actually. So can you guys see this image okay?
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, so I had this actually Tony Hewitt judged this up to gold. And he actually came up to me. This was I shot it in 2007, and I was literally in the States because I'm an American citizen. I've got a great passion and love for the American wilderness in particular, and as much as the culture of people is pretty interesting. The landscapes in America, I think, are some of the most incredible on the planet by far. And I was trying to actually get to a wedding. Like, quite often with the way my my work happens, I might get an international wedding somewhere, and I'll turn it into a month-long trip around the world, and use that to fund everything else, especially my aerial work. So I let my work kind of sometimes take me where I go, and then I'll put my feelers out from an aerial perspective. And this was sort of an example. And I was actually late to get to this wedding, and I was way out backcountry in Yellowstone, and staying with a good friend of mine, Taylor Glenn, who I've done some amazing projects with. And he's actually a Nat Geo shooter in America, incredible photographer. And all the flights are booked. And there's one that I needed to get back to shoot this wedding was like $1,200 for an hour-long flight US. And I was like, so I rang up a buddy of mine and who knew a lot of people in San Fran. And he said, I'll hook you up. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And he didn't really give me any other details and said, leave it with me. And then he rang me back and said, how much do you weigh and how big's your bag? And I don't know what he was talking about. So I told him. And he said, go to this cul-de-sac and wait there and it'll all be fine. And he was busy and he didn't tell me anything else. And I was like, what's going on? So I go to this cul-de-sac and it's this dead-end kind of suburb and there's just a few trees and a fence. And I'm just like, what the hell? I need to get to this wedding. And then suddenly I see this little hand sort of pop over the top of this fence, and this guy's calling out, and I jump over the fence and look, and it's this little guy, little spandex pants and a singlet top and John Lennon glasses, and just behind him is this tiny little private airfield and this tiny little beaten up homemade plane, and I was just like, oh my god, what's going on here? And he got one of his good mates, Richard, who's this eccentric millionaire who flies around the whole of America. Exploring hot springs actually, and he flew me all the way to San Francisco just for the price of gas, which was not much. And he had this tiny little beat up plane, and the perspex was so beaten up you could hardly see through it. And of course it was a low wing instead of a high wing, and I was like, oh man. So it was probably like the worst possible vehicle to try and do aerial photography out of, but he was a hell of a pilot. So when I saw something, he literally had to go almost beyond 45 degrees to get the wing low enough. And the only way to shoot, because the perspex was useless, was a tiny little window about this big that couldn't fit my big camera through on the pilot side. So I had to push my hand across the pilot's face right over his eyes so I couldn't see while he was banking over more than 45 degrees, which if you've done it in a plane is pretty gnarly. And the only thing I could use was my tiny little point and shoot camera, which I had to shove out the window and shoot completely blind.
And you got that.
And that's how I got that shot.
I love it. That you see that? I love that.
Couldn't even see it. And yeah, it was 90 something. And good old Dan O'Day was talking about ants and sandwiches and his judging. Don't ask me, but he's doing it. I think he's referring to the little people looking like ants or something, but it's just yeah, that was a real opener for me. And Tony actually came up to me about a year or so later when he won and said that image really inspired him in terms of pushing that sort of style of abstract work as well. So it was
stunning, Paul. It's beautiful.
A nod.
Yeah, it's a beautiful image.
But coming from that, and probably in lieu, because I shot that probably a few years before this work. This is really the body of work that really inspired me to get into aerial photography a bit more seriously. And you'll recognize this one, Christian.
Yeah.
So this is the inscription exhibition by Indy 5 from Shark Bay. And
yeah,
when I saw that in the flesh, I'd never seen prints of that quality and that caliber. And when you get somebody like Les Walkling on your printing team, let alone Tony and Christian anyway, like it's hard to describe what looking at these at a meter square, like, and just utter perfection. It's just like cream dripping down the page, and to see a landscape just explored with such incredible finesse and subtlety and grace and power, and I guess openness as well. Like I'm a pretty traditional shooter, but I didn't really realize it at first till I flew over there myself. Like, it doesn't quite look like that. But it was, which is Richard's reflection, Christian, I guess. But I guess it was a body of work that from a singular place that I just totally blew my mind. And I think actually it was after that workshop I did with you, Tom, in Karajiti. I had some really good friends that had moved from Tasmania to Denham, which is Shark Bay basically, and they invited me over to stay. And we were going to go on some 4-wheel drive trips, but it had been raining so heavily that we couldn't go anywhere. And they just said, well, why don't you fly? And I was like, well, I've had the inspiration. So not really knowing what I was doing, I went up myself, and in an hour and a half, I actually produced a book from one single hour and a half long flight. And I think that's partly where aerial photography for me really stands on its own. The level of productivity from a single shoot is like incomparable to anything else in landscape photography, I would argue. That obviously depends on you knowing what you're doing and having the right equipment and good relationship with the pilot and doing your research for time of day and a place and the season you want to be there. But once you've sort of lined up all those dots, it's pretty unbelievable what you can get into and accomplish in that regard. And so, yeah, hats off to you, gentlemen, and
ladies
and gentlemen.
No, he's talking about ND5.
All right, okay. Well, Christian's a girl, so you know.
Yeah, we'll include him.
Talking about
trying the best.
So we started this conversation a little bit with Scotty and Mieke about, you know, being drawn to more industrial type processes and so on. And this is an image in an exhibition I actually did with Scott, and it was called Altered Lands. And this is shot from in Kalgoorlie, if you didn't recognize it. And it was, I sort of approached Scott with a bit of trepidation because I'd found myself getting strangely drawn, you know, being this purist landscape photographer. Out of the corner of my eye, I'd see these mines of different features, and I just sort of didn't really want to go there because I didn't really want to engage with what it represented. But at the same time, from an artistic and a graphical point of view, it was unbelievable what you could capture over these places, and the color schemes are like nothing you've ever seen. And so I kind of embraced it to some extent, but I couldn't quite come to terms with that tension around how I felt about it. And I actually approached Scott because I noticed he had been starting to get drawn to similar things, and also Sheldon Petit as well. And we had quite a few conversations. And in the end, I just said, let's do an exhibition of it. You know, let's put it out there and let's let the work and the images do the talking for us. We're not naming names, pointing fingers, or even giving locations. And we just put together a beautiful body of work that was up for half a year actually in Circular Quay in Sydney, on these big sort of 1 meter light boxes. It was pretty epic. So head on, made it a feature exhibition luckily, and we actually got complaints from people that there wasn't enough explanation, but that was kind of the point. It
wasn't it? We didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, you put your 10 cents on this one, Scotty. Like,
no, we did. You sort of don't want to force your. I mean, it's obvious what we both think about it. You know, it's not brilliant, and especially researching this. I think the photo you see now, it's abstract and it's very cut in. We're very close, but particularly researching this on Google Maps, like Mieke said before, and we do a lot of our research on there. When you start to research it and see the sheer scale of the mining, just how many kilometers upon kilometers that they've eaten out of the land, that really, you know, wrote it home for me. And so what I like about this in the exhibition we did, Paul, is we're just sort of saying, well, there it is. You know what it is, and now go have a look, which is the same thing that's happened with me about the tailing ponds. You know, my own works made me want to go research it. And I think we try to do the same with the exhibition is, hey, get their attention. It looks cool and abstract, and then, you know, go do your homework and tell us what you think.
Well, I think we started with sort of fairly openly interpretive images, but by the time we got to the end, it was pretty clear what it was about. And we gave enough, like Altered Lands, the definition was, you know, like, I guess, showcasing how we're altering the landscape by using it as a resource. And most of these places are in incredibly remote areas that you will not be allowed to physically access in any way, shape whatsoever. And it's the backbone of this entire nation economically. It has been for a long time. And I think it's sort of out of the collective mind because it's not visible by most people in the country, and they don't really understand the impact. And probably the only way you can really present that is from an aerial perspective. And so it's quite a powerful, has a huge potential to open up awareness around the kind of impacts that are happening.
You're spot on, Paul, because any of these places you drive up and there's a gate, isn't there? No entry, you know, at all. You just cannot access them. But then you get in the air, and even with drones now, a lot of these places you're not allowed to even fly drones over them. So yeah, you know, being able to go up in a plane and show people what's really going on is pretty cool.
I think, can I butt in and say, I think the really interesting part of all this though is, you know, when you really think about it, what we're using, cameras, and what we're flying in, vehicles, all is completely made up of materials that come out of these places.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There's a real tension involved in, like, I find there's a real tension because I love, you know, natural places too, but I feel conflicted very much about all of what this represents.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a space for sustainable mining. Like, I know that there are mining companies out there that have very, very strong, I don't know if repatriation is the right word, but rehabilitation programs that will last for like 10 years after the mine closes and stuff like that. And I really think, you know, getting the involvement of all of us to talk about it and to really put pressure on mining companies to do the best they can to rehabilitate areas after the end of the mine is probably our best way forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty and I realised too, Mieke, we're all going to work together on this one. So, which is partly why, you know, we made a point of, let's just let our art do the talking. There's no names, no fingers, no places.
Well,
it's just the idea really, and the awareness of what you may not understand what's happening, and it just brings it into mind, challenges people to engage with it, maybe what may not be comfortable with for them.
Yeah, I mean, you're constantly learning as well, aren't you? I mean, that's the whole journey for me is the work that I produced has then made me dig into it more and learn more about it, and it's opened my eyes and opened my mind to what's going on and you know, how we move forward, which is, you know, why I do it, I guess.
So this is an image from an area in industrial California, and it kind of speaks to the future of, you know, almost like the destroyed planet that could be before us. And it's kind of area that it's just been disengaged and it's not being used anymore, and that's kind of what's been left behind. So it's probably one of those areas that really needs, you know, that next level of repatriation of the area. And I have another image that speaks to that story. I'll go through mine and then I'll let everyone go through theirs individually so we can sort of tell stories about our work. This is actually from almost the same place, but it has a different sort of symbolism to it. So it's a tailings pond as well, but it's figuratively, it has, you know, like a phoenix rising, and it speaks to me a lot of this particular area as a lake in California that was actually drained to give all the water to Los Angeles, and it was drained so dry that all these different minerals and different chemical kind of structures in the bottom came to light. Sorry, what's it doing? And it's became the biggest sort of toxic dust bowl in America. And it's since been repatriated and become like a symbol for the kind of that, just what you're reflecting on, Mieke. Like they had to re-flood water back into it to stop the toxic dust bowl happening, but then they actually, you know, re-engaged the wetlands for, you know, rare migratory birds, and it's sort of coming back to life. And there's a $7 million art installation that's been built on another end of it. So what was one of the most destructive areas of America is now kind of coming back to life, and it's kind of like where the symbolism comes in. You know, the phoenix is rising from the ashes. You know, this lake is coming back alive from basically being destroyed, and you know, some people that have engaged with this image, you know, engage with it personally as well from their own personal journey of moving through a struggle and learning just in that stage of starting to rise above it and pull away from the murk of it to fly again.
It's absolutely stunning, Paul.
Yeah, amazing image.
Did you have any certain type of mushrooms before you made that, Paul? just a question.
This is an image I was actually sitting next to Mr. McCook. And what I like about where this image heads is it was almost not going to happen. This is one of those images that Scotty and I look at a certain area. We didn't know what it was like. And it was a long way away, and it was going to cost a trike load of dollars to get over there. And it was like, we look at each other. Should we do it? Should we do it? It's a bit of a gamble. You know, what should we do? And all of a sudden the cloud structure was moving the wrong way for where we wanted to go. So we just said, stuff it. And we flew a long way overseas, chewing a lot of dollars that neither of us really had to get to this area. And goodness me, we found a few things, didn't we, Scotty?
Yeah, man. I mean, I love that. There's so much depth in it. It feels like you could be looking into the clouds or into another dimension. Yeah, I love that photo.
It's sort of part way between Shark Bay and Carnarvon.
Right.
It's that real far part, Tom. Like, you know, from the airport, it's about 45 minutes over.
That one you
So
keep rubbing into me. And
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
you've got to go, man. But it's pretty expensive.
Well,
But,
hey, I'm just trying to scare you away from it,
You
Tom.
probably want to take me with you so we can share the cost.
I don't know if we find it again. This is a while ago now, but I think, I guess, the other aspect you'll notice to probably a lot of our work is it's not generally traditional oblique sort of style photography where you have a sense of scale and horizon and your brain can kind of engage really clearly with what things are. I think all of us collectively in our own way are drawn sort of into the more artistic part of our being, the way we want to relate to the landscape, the way we want to communicate it. And I love sort of images that engage your right brain as much as your left. So something very clear and very obvious, all of a sudden, we understand what's in there. You sort of just look at it and go, I know what that is. It's kind of nice. Next. Whereas if your left brain is left wanting, all of a sudden your right brain kicks in and it's only really got texture to work with or shape or symbolism or metaphor or a feeling. And that then requires something of the viewer, and it's really sort of invites a lot of engagement with other parts of your being, and I feel like that's, to me, what I'm aiming for, what I feel like makes an image memorable for me, when I'm still not left necessarily knowing what it is, but it kind of doesn't matter. I'm left with a feeling or a dream or an idea or even just a question. And Scotty was pretty principled on that one sort of happening. And speaking of Scotty, in terms of we had to choose one image tonight of someone on the panel whose image we were incredibly inspired by. And goodness me, I spent about 4 hours looking through Scotty's Instagram today going, and I could have picked 100, and really it kind of didn't matter what I picked, but what I felt like this is somehow Scotty has created such an incredible mood and atmosphere and emotional realm to this image. I can't even put it into words. And
thank you.
And I've sort of been over there myself, and the way Scotty has the capacity and openness and drive to pour himself into his images and transform them in any way, shape, or form that he feels most inspired to do. And as he describes to me many times, I just go down maybe 10 or 20 rabbit holes with one image and come back out in different directions, and I never quite know where I'm going to get up. And it just boggles my mind when I see him transform places and into feelings and ideas and shapes and people and animals and just the kind of things that just leave me just wanting in terms of understanding. And this one just has such an evocative, gorgeous, elegant flow, as well as this intricacy of detail, and I can move around in all different directions in terms of visual flow, and every part of this image has a delicacy and a purpose and a point of being, and it's sort of held so beautifully with its understanding of light and how well contained we are by that very organic kind of beginning. And it's so clear that we're being directed about how he wants us to view and engage with this image. It just speaks volumes of your skill and vision, my friend.
I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you very much.
And I could probably copy those words and apply them to another 100 photographs. But
well, it's cool, because
there's one.
It's interesting to see what different people like from your portfolio. So I like that.
What is it about that image, Scott? Do you see something in particular in that image in terms of an animal or some meaning? Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, my images are probably like my diary. I don't keep a diary, but but my images are probably like my visual diary. So very mood orientated. Normally, I don't normally have a direction, but my mood will guide it. And in that one, I saw a heart in the middle, sort of drooping down. And once I saw that, I went in that direction. And I also saw a bit of an alien feel to it, which is why I shifted the mood of the color to that sort of bluish, tinge through the whole photo. But I saw a heart really. Probably
not to throw you amongst it, but I've always wondered how much of your photographs you actually do the post-production on. Is there a fair bit of work that goes into them to create that effect?
Hugely, yeah. I mean, we've spoken about this a bit. I mean, probably myself, Christian, Mieke, Paul. I know, he doesn't edit too much. Yourself, I do. I mean, I would say 10% of my imagery is not edited that much, and I'd say the other 90% is. I treat it like the raw file is a canvas, and and then I'm painting and trying to apply my mood, I guess, into it. Or sometimes I see something fun. I love seeing nature has an amazing way to put cool, funny shapes or animals in the landscape. So, but yeah, I mean, I edit a fair bit. But just because I'm going down, like Paul said, these rabbit holes, and I sort of go this way and I go that way, and normally I fail most of the time, but sometimes it works out.
That's okay. That's good. It's the end result.
Do you want to talk about some of your rabbit holes, Scotty?
Yeah, that's a great segue, isn't it?
Take your pick. Where would you like to start?
On Tom's photo, no.
No, don't do that.
Well, the wave one's probably good. The one in the middle, because that's probably what I like about what we do. So it's an aerial photo, but it looks like a wave, and it's actually a tailing pond.
Wow, I thought it was a coastline. Oh, wow.
No. And so, and I got taught this by Christian, Paul, and I mean, I've sort of had the privilege of talking to a lot of you guys and learning a lot about entering APAs and being with the AOPP, which is to sort of have layers in an image, and whether they get picked up or not, it doesn't matter as long as it attracts someone to it. And so the idea behind this was, the wave I think gets people in there, but if you look really closely, and especially when this is blown up and printed, you realise it's a tailing pond. And I really like sort of playing around with that dynamic, because it is a horrible thing. But I shifted the colours a little bit and made it look like a beautiful wave when it's not really, it's chemicals.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that was my first gold ever in APAs, that photo.
Nice one. How many have you won then?
What?
Gold awards at APA.
Oh, mate, I don't know. Too many now.
Oh, can't keep count. Too many to mention. You suck.
No, yeah, that's it. That's another one, Paul. That it's my play. To me, that looks like, I call this one Trump. If there's any Trump supporters out there, then they might not like me right now. But
if there's any Trump supporters out there, they need to get off this call.
Yeah. I called it Trump. I mean, to me, it looks like the end of the earth with meteors or comets crashing to Earth. But it's an aerial image, and it's really something I enjoy with how I edit, is to turn these 2D sort of things into a 3D sort of world. And that just and I probably spent 7 or 8 hours on that, just fine tuning it. And I really I quite like that photo because sorry, go Scotty. When you say you're talking about processing the image, are you leaving everything there that's already there, and you're just so dehaze, contrast, saturation, lightening and darkening? You've got the canvas, you've got the structure there. It's just the way that you're manipulating it in terms of light and color. Is that right? Spot on, Tom. Yeah, right. that particular image, everything was there as is. Yeah, because I look at this, I've always loved this image, and I've always looked at it and gone, fuck, how hard has he gone on that image to create that, Yeah, so I mean, where the darker areas is, I wanted to try and create depth. So where the darker areas were, I made them darker, lighter areas lighter, and get really in depth there. It's little, as everyone knows, little bites, little bit at a time, and then you can try and get that depth out of the image. So that's a lot of the time which is spent on doing that. Yeah, right. And that, of course, won the abstract image of the year in the Fine Art Awards last year. Is that right? That did. Yeah, that's right, Tom. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, man. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. Awesome. So that's sort of, I guess, a way to sum up my imagery. And that's inspired from Christian, yourself, Tom, Paul, everyone. For me, it's to be inspired by people is great, but then it's to put your own sort of style on it, and that's what I try and do. And that image sums it up pretty well, I think.
Jackson Pollock, baby.
I don't know. I've probably taken the same mushrooms you had, Paul, for that previous to make that one. I don't know. Is this the one I judged at APA? I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I thought it might have been Scotty's, but I saw it and just
freaked out and punched it to gold. I couldn't help it. I
It's
got
really
I got Jackie Rankin from 77 to gold, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Hey, well done.
Well, it's pretty. That was tailing pond images are really hard to edit because there's so much red normally, and the sun's out. The red will bounce off everything else, so you get it's sort of the color balance of the white one's very shifted towards warm colors. So I started to play around with the technique to be able to shift those colors to get the actual true bits of white and blue and yellow out without having that tinge in it. And it took me weeks and months to crack it. And once I cracked it, I went back to all these tailing pond images and went, holy cow, I can sort of bring these colors out now. And that was one of them. And just chaotic. Jackson Pollock.
Scott, you could have saved yourself a lot of time just by signing up for Christian Fletcher's Photoshop courses, and you could have done it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, probably. I'm going to sign up to Scott's. I don't know how to do that.
If you asked me how I did it, I'd say to you, I have no idea. Never make me create something twice. I couldn't remember.
It's hard.
I can vouch for that because I've been over his shoulder, and the next day he's like, I don't know, man. It just kind of happened. It was just one of those rabbit holes.
A few beers and a few bottles of red wine later, and he's created a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's normally the key, Tom. You know that.
Yeah, bloody oath. Editing's far more fun when you've got a bottle of wine in front of you.
Yes.
Well, I mean, again, this is the kind of image that reminds me of how I think abstract aerial photography in particular has a way of transcending medium, as it were, and that, how many people in the world would be 100% convinced this was an oil painting? There wouldn't be anyone you couldn't convince in that regard, even in print. And I really enjoy that part of the way we can support, photography being more accepted and embraced as a fine art medium, because I feel like it's had a bit of a hard rap, digital photography in particular in this part of the world, a little bit less so in maybe Europe and Asia and America, but over here it's just struggling to sort of be accepted into that realm, and to some extent, I mean, Christian might have a few thoughts about that, and Tom too, but yeah, the way Scotty can do it, I don't know. I've flown over these things too, and I got no idea how he comes up with this. It's just amazing.
If it makes you feel good, do it. That's what I reckon. And editing like that, it's my happy place and my happy time.
So this is a pretty dark series of images, wasn't it, Scotty? So I'm having trouble. It won't let me do full screen. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, once again, I guess it's my visual diary. I was going through a bit of a tough time at that stage, and that's, I guess, the result of it. Once again, I'm not sure how that came out, but yeah, the creature from the deep did, and that's what I created, and I really actually don't know how I did.
It looks like these incredible lines just dripping down the canvas. It's like scratch marks almost.
I did, I scratched it on purpose. I think it was to sort of convey my mood at the time, which was a bit scratchy. And then that's me. That's me lurking from the deep. That's actually about the closest self-portrait that I've done to date.
Wow. Wow, it's interesting, isn't it? Like when I saw Scotty's body of work for this year, I was like, and we've been good enough friends that I knew a lot of the journey he's going through, and it was just so clearly indicative that so much of his soul and his journey have been poured into from his life into that it just really
that's really good for the soul, man. It's nice. I think we can all agree it's we get to share this beautiful world with everyone from the air, but it's also good for us, the whole process, isn't it?
So I was pretty sure I was sitting next to you on this one, Scotty, wasn't I?
You were the one who got us there, man. Yeah, that's it. That was the last minute, hey, we'll go check this out, and found this beautiful sort of moon-shaped sand dune out in Shark Bay. And
I'll zoom in a bit closer so they can see, but one of my there's a photo. Oh, might be the file's too small, sorry, Scotty, but there's a
it's all right.
If you're right up here where my arrow is, there's actually, what do you think? It's an emu track? What do you think it is?
Well, yeah, when I figured it out, I thought it might be a kangaroo, but yeah, kangaroo emu track. And
I've seen a shitload of goats on those dunes or on similar dunes up at Shark Bay as well. Like
it might be
100 goats in one flock, so.
Yeah, it was just
it's a singular animal, this one for sure, because there's no other track anywhere.
Special place and
maybe.
Special photo, because I think this was a last minute decision with Paul, and part of, I guess, what we do is also enjoying it with the people that we do it with. And this was a last minute call and we found this dune and we were both just so excited. I've got video of Paul shooting it, and I think his camera was starting a lot on fire. He took so many photos.
It was pretty insane.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And it's just, kind of, once again, this kind of imagery it makes me think about it. It's like, is that dune swallowing the vegetation, or is it the other way? Is it exposing it? And it really makes you think about it and learn more about the landscape. And I went and researched these dunes, and yeah, it's something I really love about what we do. It educates me.
You spend a lot of time on Google Earth, don't you, Scott? You've sent me shots.
Yeah. Way too much time.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. I love it when you get in that mindset, and you're just like, fuck me, look at this, look at that. We're going here next. And
it was like Mieke was saying before. I think once you learn the settings and everything, you are paying a lot of money for these. Whether it's a plane or a helicopter, and doing your research and really does maximize the amount of photos you're going to get from it, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah, it's probably something that I've learned from you guys more than anything is I tend to sort of wing it and just go, oh, well, that place, I hear that place is pretty good. Let's go flying. But I'd probably get even more images should I do a little bit more research into going, specifically to the places and knowing where to shoot.
Yeah. So yeah, but then again, it's never the same sometimes, isn't it? Like you do all the research in the world, like we were saying before, and then you get there and go, oh, crap.
Yeah.
So Scotty was delegated Tom actually out of the hat. So
I was.
There's a mystery hat, and each panelist was designated one of the other panelists to go through their folio of work and pick one out that they really wanted to speak to. And this is what Scott shows from Tom.
Jesus. This needs to go to the Peter Lick School of Photoshop and be dialed up about 50 points in saturation. It's lacking a little bit of punch there. But anyway.
I think I might have stole this from. I had to dig it up, Tom.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure where. I think I might have got it off Facebook and then sent it to
Paul. No,
but
it's probably pretty much straight out of camera then, maybe.
Yeah. I think it might be. It might have actually been one of the ones you sent me. But Tom and me share photos quite often, and normally I'm jealous where he's been, and obviously we all are out there shooting and trying to find new material. And when Tom sent me this, I was blown away by it because I spent a lot of time looking at the Earth from the air, and when he sent me this, it just blew me away. I didn't even know what was going on. The perspective, everything. It was one of those photos that I've just never seen anything like it. I'm not sure I ever will again. Perfect light, everything. And that's why I had to. And there's a series from here as well. This isn't the only one. You've got a few angles, Tom, but this is the only one I could find.
Yeah, right.
But I just loved it, man. And like I told you that day, it's just it's so unique. I've never seen anything like it. But it was amazing.
Thanks, mate. I'll send you a slab of beer and the checks in the mail. Mate.
Yeah, no worries. Good. Thank you very much.
This is the kind of image, Scotty, like you said, that inspires me to research and having been in this area quite a lot myself. These are really, really ancient sort of wind-blown tracts of dunes that are thousands of years old. And that's where those ridge lines come from, and the predominant winds have blown them in that direction.
Right. No, that's not it at all, Paul. Sorry.
Isn't it? Oh, that's what I got told.
No.
What it is. There's a mound break down the bottom on the right.
Yeah. So what this is this is taken last year during, I think this was June. So this is during the second flood into Lake Eyre, and they're the mountain springs that you find along the western shoreline. And there'd been a strong wind the day before that had come from the west and had pushed the water back into the lake towards the Warburton Groove. And we went out first thing in the morning trying to get to the lake at sunrise, of course, and we flew up that west coast. And by the time we hit these mountain springs, the sun had only just come up, but there was still wet mud left over from the water that had been lying around these springs.
Hence the glow and the glistening.
And hence the glow, because you wouldn't get that from the dry salt because that would just be white. There was still this very wet, damp, dark mud that you get out there. And these lines are created by the salt drying out and left over from the water disappearing. So it was just one of those once in a lifetime. I honestly don't know that we'd ever get this opportunity to see this again, because it relies on the conditions with the water being high enough to go around these mounds, which I've only ever seen once, and then it disappearing very quickly to leave that salt and those streaks like you see there. So, you know, it's one of those cases where I wish I'd probably flown around it 20 more times, but there's 3 or 4 images in this series that I absolutely love. And I remember sending them to you straight away and just going,
you did.
Jesus
man.
Christ, look at this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you knew what you got.
If it's when I think it was, I think I was literally there flying the week before you and the week after, Tom, and I sure as never saw this.
Yeah.
So
No, it was just one of those mornings that it came together. Yeah, it just probably never happen again, but I'm glad I've got a few images from that. So that's nice. Thanks, Scotty. I really appreciate it.
No, pleasure, man. Yeah, I mean, all of you guys I had to pick one from yourself, but yeah. Definitely beautiful.
I also ask everyone to pick a single image that really stood out to them and their entire career as something that really inspired them or moved them somehow or really pushed them along their path and to aerial photography. So this is the one that Scotty chose. Do you want to speak?
Well, it was a bit too hard, Paul, because it's such a hard thing to pick one image, or favorite. So I went with this because I think this inspired me to get into aerial photography. I remember seeing this come up. This is Tony's, and I think I saw it come up in AIPP as well. And I just remember seeing it, the reds, the perspective, and I fell in love with it. And I had to know, how was that taken? Obviously from the air. And it inspired me to get in the air and really start aerial photography, this one image. So I included it, because it really got me up there and started this whole journey.
So people didn't know, this is part of Tony's folio. They actually won the Australian Professional Photographer of the Year. And it was part of the inscription series and exhibition that really launched me up there as well, that Christian was a part of.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I was on the flight with Tony when we took that, and I've got one of those as well, but it's not as good as Tony's, which is
I saw it. Like, I don't know how you guys negotiated who was going to let the cat out of the bag first. There are images from that trip.
Yeah, the problem was, Christian, it was deciding between that and some of yours from that, but I went that one.
Yeah, no, that's a beauty, and I think Tony in our group, it was always he who gets it up first took it. The rest of the people just copied. So it doesn't matter who took it first. It's like whoever gets it on social media first owns it. Come home after a shoot and you would be like just quickly editing something. Go get it online, bang, done. It's mine.
It's mine. I'm the first.
It's often crossed my mind whether or not you hang on to something in order to sort of, reveal it at another point in time, or do you put it out there straight away because then you can own that as being the first to shoot it, The competitiveness in me wins almost every time where I just go, no, fuck it, I've got to put it out there straight away.
Yeah, you got to be the first, because I quite often I'll talk to other photographers and they'll talk about a project they're doing and they're going, oh, look, I've got this really great idea and I'm going to do this, but I can't put it out until I'm ready. And I've made it mine as an artist who does this all the time. And I'm going, dude, get this frigging thing out because it looks amazing. And if you don't, someone else is going to own it, and you're going to be the second
fiddle,
second man on the
the
Buzz Aldrin of photography. So
don't tell him that.
Well, hold on. Who is about the 20th person to land on the moon? Because that's the way I feel about aerial photography and my place in it at the moment, mate.
We all feel the same.
We're all following the leader at the moment. I feel. Well, maybe not. Maybe not all of us. I can only speak for myself.
Yeah, we're all doing it. We all do the same stuff, and we're all creating our own vision. And
I think we're all incredibly lucky to be in Australia and have so many practicing aerial photographers who are, putting their stuff on social media.
100%.
So many.
It's incredible.
I see Tim's here, Tim Ray. He does some incredible aerial photography, and I saw earlier Timothy Moon. He's got some beautiful aerial photography. I mean, what I love is that there's so many in Australia right now who are really, coming out with their own vision of what aerial photography looks like, and it's fantastic.
Smashing it. The standard is so frigging high, and I think what I'm even getting from the conversation tonight is how much we inspire each other to want to do better. Like to to seek new horizons, to go and shoot something that's equally as spectacular, if not better. But it's that healthy competitiveness that's making this genre of photography that I'd love to think that in years to come, people look back on and go, wow, those guys were really, you know, hitting their straps back then, weren't they? Look at the work that they created. I'd love to think that we'd be remembered that way, but it doesn't matter either way. I just think we're really enjoying the process of creating all these beautiful, what I call art pieces at the moment, because just reiterating what has been said already, to me, to put an aerial photograph, an abstract aerial photograph up here in the gallery feels so much more creative and so much more me than putting anything else up, even if it's aerial from, you know, the Mornington Peninsula, for example, which there's a fair bit behind me here at the moment, but it doesn't feel anything close to what you've got here. People are literally walking into the gallery saying, so this is a painting? And I say, no, it's a photography gallery. And they say, well, hold on, how is that a painting and a photograph? And sometimes even I have trouble describing how nature has created something so beautiful to create that piece of art on the wall that, yes, only because I've shot it, I know that it's a photograph, because otherwise I could definitely say it was a painting and no one will blink an eye, you know?
That's so
cool.
Christian,
you know, has the same, you know, thing at his gallery. Do you, Christian? Or not? Or is it because my work's, you know, superior?
No one ever asked if my photos are paintings.
It's too true. You probably don't. That's, you know why? You know why he said that, everybody? Because he doesn't spend enough time in his gallery. He's got his minions doing all that. He's sitting back just counting the money, just, you know, bathing in the moe and, you know, flicking the $100 bills into the pool and, you know, palming them off.
I wish. No, but you know, it happens every now and then. But mostly people come in and say, "You got your discounted prints?"
Well, hold on. There's a lesson to be learned there. Just don't discount your work, mate, and then no one asks for it.
Yeah, no, they don't do that either.
Going back to what we were sort of alluding to just before, like, what do you think is unique about Australian aerial photography and the genre of how it's working here as opposed to the rest of the world? And where do we sit in the scheme of things, do you think, globally?
I think we're incredibly spoilt for choice with regards to the variants. You know, there are just so many different, like nothing else looks like Gutharaguda Shark Bay, and nothing else looks like Kaditanda Lake Air, and nothing else looks like Broome, Roebuck Bay. You know, like the East Kimberley Mudflats, West Kimberley Mudflats. Like we are just so spoilt for choice. It's insane.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, same. We are very spoiled.
I mean, I know of 2 American aerial photographers that are coming out here to Australia, hopefully, you know, next year to spend, you know, 3 or 4 weeks here just shooting all the places that they're seeing from our images on social media. In fact, one guy has a private helicopter that he's putting on a boat and he's shipping out here to Australia so he can fly his private helicopter.
Can I be his best friend?
Yeah. No, sorry, Paul, mate. I got that gig already.
Oh, come on. if you pull a sickie, mate.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
The only rotten thing about that is you can't fly very well. Is that what yours, Tommy?
Yeah. No, it's his first time flying. He says he's a really good pilot, but he learned he got his helicopter license on the internet. So I gather it's okay.
You'll be fine, mate. You'll be fine. No worries.
No worries at all. I wonder why I haven't died yet, bloody on a plane.
Well, touch bloody wood, Tom. Don't say stuff like that.
No.
I was having a discussion with Luke about the show beforehand, and I was like, should I ask them like to tell stories about their closest call? And he's like, maybe don't.
Ask Licky. He's even got a photograph of a helicopter smashed by the side of the road or in the bush somewhere. He's survived a helicopter crash apparently. Well, I remember, when I say apparently.
I got a pretty fun story around that. I was literally coming home one night in the middle of winter in Hobart in my car park, and it was dark, and I just heard some American voice. I was like, nobody lives here who's American, and you don't normally approach people in the dark in a car park because it's kind of like, well, what the hell? But I was like, I just sussed it out and went in to say get out of this guy, and he was coming to visit one of my friends that lived next door, and I ended up having a chat to him, told him what I was into, and he's like, oh, you should connect with my buddy Chris. And I was like, oh, who's Chris? And he's like, oh, check him out. And he's just spent the week, you know, with 3 National Geographic photographers flying around on his trike all around.
Oh, that was Chris Birdhard.
Oh, no, it was Chris Birdhard. Was one of them. Another Russian guy, Stas Batinkis, and another guy, another Nat Geo guy, literally 3 in a row. And I just went, well, this give me a good excuse to go to America. And I got a wedding over there, so the tickets booked and ready to go. And I figured out a way to meet up with them in Monument Valley in Utah. And the night before I got there, I'd spent months planning and money I didn't have to get there. I got this call from him going, "Oh, bro, sorry, it's all off, man. The wing just got crushed." And he's out there. He's got nothing but his trike, which he's 15 hours to get there from like the Mexican border almost. And it's all stuffed. And I'm like, I've only got this tiny window to fly with him before the next Nat Geo, this Russian guy comes in. And I was like, oh my God, I rang up. And Scotty he knows me so well. He just rang up while I was in this car park in Las Vegas, almost in tears, just going, I just go halfway around the world for this. And it's just falling apart the day before. And the next thing you know, he's getting his mate to drive 11 hours up with a certain patch kit. And he's got the local lady from the restaurant to get his sewing machine out. And then he's getting me to go and buy this special tape from a certain shop. And we're all like converging in on his little trike, which is just out in the middle of nowhere in an airport hangar. And we stayed up all night till 4 a.m. and it was like the wrong sewing machine and the wrong thread. And it was just like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. And he can't get home any other way because that's how he got there. All he has is a skateboard and his trike and his wallet. That's about it. And we got up in the morning and he's like, who's game for the first flight? He said, I better go up myself first.
Just to make it.
So he goes up and then basically by the time I was all ready to go, it was too late. My window was over and the Russian guy was arriving in an hour. And I was just like, well, at least I helped this guy out. I guess I'll go explore Monument Valley, but I was pretty gutted. And then the phone rings and we get this sort of phone call and you hear the strange accent and it's the Russian guy and he's missed his flight and he's going to be another day and a half late.
Oh, winner.
Like, oh yeah, baby.
Oh, that's such a shame.
Chris. Oh, so sorry.
Devastated.
So away we went and a trike's like nothing you've flown in. It's basically a hang glider with a tiny lightweight seat and an engine on the back. And there's nothing else.
No.
So there is nothing in the way.
No.
I've yet to fly in anything where you can shoot left and right straight down without moving a cent and literally shoot vertically straight down.
Yeah, up and down because there's nothing else holding you up in the air.
You don't even need to tip over.
Well, it would only be able to take you. It wouldn't be able to take me. It wouldn't be able to get ground.
Not with how many beers you've had tonight, Scotty. Jesus, you've been trucking them down.
The other thing that caught me out. The other thing that caught me out is you have to wear a full face helmet on these things because you're literally in 120 canals of wind force. There's no shield. There's no nothing.
Oh yeah, good point.
And so try shooting with your camera through a full face helmet, boys. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, you'll be doing that. Look but don't see kind of thing.
So I had to sort of jerry rig that, and then I actually ended up borrowing a Sony mirrorless because that was brilliant at it because you didn't have to use the live view, which is terrible at focusing. And you'll miss probably 70-80% of your shots. So I just juggled between the two and figured something out. But right on our first flight, all of a sudden I look over and I was like, and the wings just go like, and I tapped him on the shoulder and pointed up and he goes, and he's just like, then he goes to the microphone. It's like, is there any trucks coming? I was like, what do you mean? Is there any trucks coming? We're up in the air. We got to land pronto, man. And I was just like, oh my God. And I was just looking around and we had to land in the middle of the motorway. And so he was asking me about trucks because that's the worst. He's like, you don't want to be in a truck on the motorway. Trust me, it's happened before. And so we literally had to land right in the middle of the motorway and just taxi off into the bushes and try and fix this thing up with tape and stuff before.
That's a classic Holland.
Oh,
yeah, classic Holland story.
But then seeing how keen he was and all that I'd done for him, he actually really went out of his way for me. And we flew over like the San Juan Goosenecks and what's that incredible national park just northwest of there? Not Cathedral. Anyway, like we did we spent about 4 hours and 20 minutes in the air, and he said, I've never flown that long ever, let alone with somebody else. So he really wanted to give me everything he could. So we've become really, really good friends since then, and he's out all the time. I just saw some photographs of him yesterday. He's just jerry built these snowboards and stuck them on the wheels of his trike so he could land on the snow.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And he's literally like drops his mates off and they do like hell skis back to places and he lands on there himself and does hikes and he's pretty amazing pilot. But if you want to be pretty game with those things because there's not a lot of regulation going on and they're really, really, really super hollow metallic things that are very easy to break and bend.
I think Paul Arnold up in Darwin gets a fair bit of his photographs the same way. You know,
he's done some. I was hanging out with Paul a little while ago, and I actually organised to go with his mates because he's got some mates that are in like a kite flying club almost.
Yep.
And they fly out and land on these different sort of islands off the Darwin coast, and I was actually all set up to go do this with him about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And about a week before. I was come up, maybe about 6 days before he gave me a call and said, "Oh, yeah, that's not going to happen." I was like, "Oh, Bubba, why not?" Well, it kind of crashed.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Put it together with tape.
And if somebody else was in the plane at the same time, they probably wouldn't have made it. So I was just sort of like, "Oh, yeah, well, maybe we'll stick with plan A." So didn't get it fixed in time.
We better keep it moving along, Paul, and look at somebody else's photos. We'll be here all night.
I'm up for Christian next.
Plus, Tom's standing, so.
Yeah, I am standing.
You poor bastard.
Christian, I'm going to go through Christian's 5, and you can either talk about them all or just maybe pick whatever you want, what you feel like talking to, Christian.
Yeah, sure, man.
And I'm just going to disappear for a second because I need to go and flick the timer on the lights here in the gallery. Otherwise, I'm going to end up in the dark any minute now. I forgot to do it beforehand. Just excuse me 1 second.
Is that what you call it? Flicking the timer. That's not what I call it.
So, Christian, what do you feel? What do you feel drawn to speak about?
Well, look, I the first one on the left I'm going to talk about because it's actually it was interesting enough. It was in one of my APA photos, and where one of the judges said, you know, this has just been photoshopped because you can't have a long exposure when you've been obviously flying in a plane, and
that's right. I remember this.
Yeah, and so they didn't. They thought it was all Photoshop trickery and bullshit. So I'm not sure how it got scored, but anyway, that was the story that came out from. I didn't actually hear them say that, I was told this afterwards. So anyway, this was shot from the lands from Lord Howe Island. So there's a big island there, a big mountain there at the end of the island, and we climbed up the side of that and photographed this. So it's kind of like an aerial photograph that I was firmly planted on the ground and had an ND filter and did a long exposure, not super long, but and that was kind of just a different take on an aerial photograph, and it's one that's, it obviously isn't your traditional straight down aerial. It was one that showed the sky, and I don't mind showing the sky like this if the sky's worthwhile putting in. A lot of times when I'm photographing, it's just bright blue sunlight.
Yeah.
I try to avoid that that look of a tourist postcard when I photograph my aerials, and this one was kind of was one that was, you can kind of call it an aerial, even though I wasn't really up in an aeroplane. So yeah, and I've always liked it. I just like the simplicity, the fact that that the tones are, obviously it's been edited in Photoshop. I've whacked some filters on it and whatever else, and did whatever. And I think it was the TNFP filter that I put on it, which I created way back when, and no one understood what that actually was. And when I told them that, how amazing it was, everyone wanted to know. And then I had to tell them that it was the TNFP filter was "that's not fucking possible" filter. Creative.
It's like you had a T-shirt made up with
I made a range of T-shirts.
Yeah, you're selling them, I think.
Yeah, I sold 11 of those.
He's got another 989
that's right.
in the garage if anyone wants one.
Yeah, so that had the TNFP filter on it. But so I quite like that one, just for something a little bit different. That someone thought it was an aerial photograph, but actually was shot from the side of a hill. Yeah, and so that was an interesting story. So what else we got? I'll just go through them quickly. Like this one, I loved making model airplanes when I was a kid. So all the air model, and that was when I photographed this. I was doing an exhibition called Below, and we flew over Kwinana and we went out to Rottnest, and the best part of that trip was landing at Rottnest, walking to the Quokka Arms and having a very nice lunch and a few beers, and then hopping back in the plane and flying home. But this was at Kwinana, and I love having the sense of scale. And when you look at this, I mean, those pipes, that's obviously an industrial plant that was going to get put together, some sort of mining structure, whether it was oil and gas platform or something that was going to get made and then shipped out. But I love the way it was all fairly, just mainly grey tones, but with these little bits of colour. And I think this was in one of I got a gold award, gold distinction or something stupid. I know.
Yeah, that's awesome, Christian. I love that photo.
How old is that image, Christian?
That would be
70s?
Well, that would have been shot in 2012 or something like that, maybe 2013.
I've not seen that before.
Yeah, I have. I remember it coming up to judging.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Pretty sure got gold distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of the hardest thing about it was that I was shot. I shot it on a bit of an angle, so I had to try and square everything up in post. But it was really hard, and it's kind of got a bit of a weird look now because it wasn't straight down there. If you shot that with a drone, you would just nail everything. The perspective would be perfect, and it would be really nice. But I had to do a lot of skewing in post, and I lost a lot of the image because I had to try and straighten it up. But it kind of works for me. So.
The shadows on this really gives it so much dimensionality. Those dark, rich shadows.
Yeah, as you can see, it was getting close to lunchtime, so we weren't far from Rottnest Island. So late morning. And the best thing I love about aerials is that you don't have to shoot it at any particular time. It can be pretty much any time. And I know Edward Tinksy likes to photograph when it's overcast. He doesn't want any shadows, and that's definitely great for some of the mining stuff and everything. So, but yeah, that was one of my favorites. What else we got?
Well, the other thing for me, Christian, I remember seeing this in the flesh in print, and I was just thinking, wow, you really want some serious resolving power in your camera system to be able to bring out the kind of detail that you have. And that's something that you've had the pleasure and privilege of for a lot of your career is being able to borrow, loan, and use some of the most high resolving equipment that exists in the world for aerial photography. So and to me, you couldn't really pull off this kind of image, at least the caliber of print that you have. Not necessarily without it, but as well, because it's just so intricate. Like if you go down with a microscope to any part of this image in reality in a print, it's just as crisp as anything else. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
I love this. I love
this. Yeah, I'm going to say the same. This is freaking amazing.
And I've seen it in print, and it's equally brilliant.
Yeah, shot on the drone, and it was it was a waste processing facility in Dardanup, so just not far from home. And I actually did I speak to you boys about it when you were down?
You did.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't know that, but when you told me, no, we never found it in the end. But when you told me that, I loved it even more. Because it reminds me of space, but knowing that it was at a shite plant is even better.
Yeah, and I was just lucky when I got there because those birds flew over and I didn't have to put them in with Photoshop.
I've only just noticed them now.
Yeah, there's a flock of birds, cockies or something like that.
The coup de grace, the birds.
Yeah, that kind of helps give you the scale. And I mean, it's not a huge dam, but and when I photographed it, it obviously didn't look quite like that because as soon as you put the contrast in, all the color comes out and the textures and all the weirdness that's going on. God knows I don't even know what's going on there. But I went back just this weekend to photograph it again with a mate of mine, and it's all dried up. So
not the same.
It's not nowhere near as good.
Even better.
With something like that, would you be taking multiple frames, looking down and getting sort of like stitching them together to get a larger size frame, or is it actually like a single frame?
Yeah, no, I didn't, but I should. And and I often, but you know what it's like. It's always the same when you get up in a plane or whether with a drone. As soon as you get that up there, something happens to your brain and you just go, oh my God.
Yes.
Aperture, shutter speed, focus.
So
what am I supposed to be doing?
This is so true. It's so true. And all you're thinking about is, holy fuck, I've got to get this.
Yeah, and you're thinking, if I miss this, oh my God, if I miss this.
Yeah, you're not thinking about, I should really try and get this from a different angle, and how about I do a pano stitch, and then, you know, we'll go lower, we'll go higher. You just don't think about all that, or you're just like bang, 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 and then you're like, right, next.
Yeah. It's you just panic and you freak out. And even with the drone, I know that I can just kind of hover, but then I see it and I get twitchy on the controls, and I'll twist one way and then it's too far, and I'll twist back and it's too far the other way, and I go, come on, just light on the controls, don't get too excited, the breathing goes up.
At least you know how to use your drone, mate. I don't know what thing does which, you know.
Yeah, well, I haven't using the drone. We talked about the drones, and I love it. I mean, I love the fact that it's so much easier. And I have to tell you, it's a little bit of a brag story, actually. A mate of mine's got a Tesla Model X, and of course that's got a 17-inch beautiful screen with Google Maps right there with satellite view. So you're driving along in this thing, it's like, we call it SpaceX because it's all white inside, and it's just like the SpaceX capsule. And there's the Google Earth map there, 17-inch beautiful touchscreen, and you're just looking at, oh yes, that looks nice. Let's pull up over there and take a photo of that, shall we? Let's whack the drone up. Oh, look at that. Oh, jolly good show. Let me just pull the doors up.
Wait a minute. I'll just put the air conditioning on because it's a bit hot at the moment.
Oh, no, I can't do that. Yeah, oh, there goes the battery. Oh, we're in trouble now. We can't get home. But no, that's a bit of a brag. But,
2 and 2 together here, Christian. Is this mate of yours? Is this somebody that I might know quite well also?
Yeah, you know
him,
mate.
Okay, yeah. I didn't realise he had a Tesla. There you go.
Yeah, he just got it. It's awesome.
Nice one.
Anyway,
of course he did.
But so we were out shooting this thing. And,
I saw that.
Yeah. But he's
out shooting again, man. It's been too long.
Yes, come over, mate. Let's go.
Yeah,
well, he can't.
Come
over.
Come over.
He's just got an eye now. Sorry.
He can drive.
Thanks, mate.
Bye. Sorry.
Thanks.
Yeah, I snuck a trim over Scotty while I could. Christian, how do you find working with the files from what drones are capable of doing compared to something like a Phase 1? I mean, that must be chalk and cheese.
Yeah, the drone is so much better than the Phase. As a 5x7, you just can't beat it. Look, obviously there's a quality difference, but you know what, the drone, the biggest prints I've made with a drone and sold, and people have been happy with, is 66 inches by 44 inches.
Wow. What drone are you using these days, mate?
That's the Phantom 4 Pro.
Yeah, right.
And
which is 12 megapixel? How many megapixels?
20. 20, yeah.
Right.
And really, it looked quite good. And it kind of does depend on the subject a little bit. But in post, I think the important thing is it gets a little bit of chromatic aberration on the edges and a little bit of softness. So if you correct that, if you get rid of that, it tends to smarten up the file quite good.
What are you using to resize the pictures to get them up that big? What software?
PhotoZoom Pro 8 I'm using.
Right.
But there is the gigapixel.
Yes, the Topaz.
Yeah. AI or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And I have tried that, but I just got the trial version because I'm a cheap ass, and it wouldn't work. It was changing the color on some of the files.
Right.
So I don't know why, but I'll have to speak to Les.
Tom, you had some amazing results with that you posted, which I was blown away by.
I've used it a little bit here. I used it on a 12 megapixel Mavic DJI Mavic Pro. I've now upgraded to the Mavic 2 Pro, and I've got it hanging here in the gallery behind me. We cut it up as a triptych, and it's about, the image itself is probably a meter by 1.2, 1.3. We cut it up into 3. And, you know, when you stand back the other side of the gallery, 3 meters away, you couldn't tell that it's shot on a drone. It's only when you get closer that you see that it breaks up a bit, and it's not nearly as good as my amazing 50 megapixel Pentax 645Z. Thank you very much.
You should try the Leica SL2.
Pentax.
This is an amazing photo.
Yeah, I love this.
Oh my God, I've not seen this.
Yeah, haven't you? Oh, that's Yep, it's.
I haven't either.
It was actually. I'm going to own up. It is actually, the tree wasn't there, but everything else was there. The tree was somewhere else.
Oh, come on! Don't tell me that.
Yeah, it's art, baby. It's art.
Right. So, okay. Fair enough.
But the crops, so obviously that there must have been rocks or something there, so that they've planted around those.
Yeah.
They obviously couldn't dig them out, and so that the way the crops were is exactly right. And then I had photographed that tree at another stage. So then I put them together and tried to, make it fit. And because at the time I was banging on a fair bit about the environment, and to me that kind of summed up my feelings and my thoughts, that we cut down all the trees to plant crops, to feed animals, to eat the animals, and we're destroying ourselves and our planet because of it. So it was a bit of a story about that. So it's probably taking a book out of taking a leaf out of Ricardo's book. Ricardo, top guy, top amazing artist, lovely stuff. So I thought, there's got to be. When I looked at it, there has to be something more added to it, because without that, it kind of loses a little bit.
Have you printed this and sold this in the gallery, Christian, by any chance?
I think we've actually just put it on the website. I don't think we've actually ever printed it.
Oh, so but I must
do that. Yeah, it's and look, like all my photos, I always try to darken a lot of it and just add the light to where it's important. So that obviously that tree is the important part, and it's just a matter of putting a curves adjustment layer on there and bringing down the curve, and then rubbing back the light where you want it, and but not crushing the detail too much that you can't see something in the darker areas. I'm pretty
shot on a drone.
Yeah, shot with a Phantom 4. Both shots were with a Phantom 4.
A local printed, a local area of yours, I guess.
Out in the wheat belt, can't remember exactly, but it was just when the crops it must be the end of winter, I think, when the crops are really looking cool.
Yeah, really green.
I've got another image that's quite striking with I think it's a similar tree near a dam, I think, from memory as well. It's
not even sure if it's the same tree or not. Might be. You go back in my post, you'll probably find it. Go, I won't talk about this one because Tommy's got this one in his thing, haven't you, Tommy?
Yeah, I know, but I'd like you to talk about it.
Oh, okay. My kids. I took my kids to the movies, right? And I was going to go see some shoot 'em up action show, and they were going to go see It Too. Anyway, I get there, and they're not old enough to go to see It 2 on their own, and I didn't want to go see it because it would scare the hell out of me. And anyway, they said there was my kids and their friends, and the girl goes, look, an adult has to go with them. If they're going to see this movie, it's MA 15 plus, whatever. They have to be escorted by an adult. So I had to buy a ticket and go to this frigging movie. So I sat there and packed my dacks for, I sat through 2 hours of sheer terror. And so this is my It balloon. They have a red balloon. I'm not sure if you've seen it. There's a red balloon. So I shot this dam, and I'll admit a couple of things about this photo. It wasn't that perfectly round. So it needed a bit of warping in Photoshop to round it off a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it too round because I didn't want to blow my cover, but I've blown it now. Everyone knows I'm a fake, so that's okay. And also the texture in it is a sand dune. It's the top ridge of a sand dune.
I was wondering about that.
I'm guilty of the rounding things. I like
you do that
to be a bit rounder.
Yes, I know the exact photo you're talking about. It looks like a globe. And with a claw over the top. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's it. Yeah.
Another one. How true to life is that colour in the lake, though, Christian?
That was pretty close.
Really?
It was quite red. Yep. And so pretty striking straight up. But you do add your flair, and we all know. Hey, look, some of these things, you've got the atmosphere that's blocking a lot of the colour, the reflection of the surface of the water is blocking the colour. Yep. So as soon as you add that contrast, it comes back, and then you give it a tweak. And I always say to people, look, hey, I shoot decor photography. I shoot pictures that people want to hang on their wall.
Yeah.
So why would they hang something on the wall that had a dull red, blood red splodge when they could be a bit more vibrant and look pretty on the wall? So we've got this hanging in the gallery. Looks pretty nice. So.
Really? How big have you printed that? And
that one at the gallery, it's not huge. It's about 40 inches by 27. So a meter by 7.
Yeah. Behind glass.
It is behind glass. Yes.
Yep.
And this Miike's shot.
You unlucky guy, you got me.
Oh, you got bigger than that.
You sent me a tiny one, Christian.
Hang on. Now, first thing I have to say to Mieke.
Yes.
I can't rip photos off your website.
I know. Yes.
I had to do a screen grab. So shame on you. Shame on you.
Oh, sorry, everyone. We're not doing Miike's image justice. I didn't realize this. all.
It's all good.
Yeah, I thought it would be bigger than that, but obviously, can you zoom in a bit, or is that it?
That is Zoom.
Right.
Yep.
There you go. Smaller.
Everyone will just have to go to my website to look at it.
Well, I want to talk about Mieke before I talk about the photo, because I can't wax lyrical like Paul can. Paul, he can rabbit on about an image and say all these things. I'm going, what is it? Wow, that's okay. I never thought that. That's cool. Yeah, okay, yep, I get that. So I don't see it the same way. I'm a little bit base level. I see something and I like it, and that's it, right? And it's like when I take photos, if I like a scene, I'll take a photo of it. That's as easy it is. That's as basic it is with me. But I want to talk about Mieke, because Mieke and I had a challenge. She said, "Oh, Christian, I'm going to be kicking your ass in 5 years' time." And now I think it's been about 5 years. Is it what you say?
It was 5 years.
Yeah, and now she's winning everything, kicking my ass all over the room. And we did have a running race at one stage, and I can't remember if you beat me or I beat you. But
I don't remember either. It was tough though, because it was up a gorge wall.
I think it was probably a draw. So she is someone who's going somewhere, and I always talk to people about photography, and they ask me how do I get to this point where I can have a gallery or I can be successful and make it a career, a living. I said, well, firstly, you've got to have a good talent. You've got to be able to take a good photograph. But you've got to come up with something interesting that people like. But you're not going to get anywhere unless you're passionate and you're committed and you're driven. Because you can be the best photographer in the world and no one will ever see your work. And Mieke is one of those people that is driven. She was a bobsled person way back when. You represented Australia, was that right, in the bobsledding? Probably a lot of people don't know that. And were you the driver or just the pusher or the?
No, I was the brake. I was the reserve brake woman.
Ah, wow. So they have a reserve, like a reserve parachute. They pull it if things are going. They throw you out the back of the boat.
There we go.
So, Mieke, does that make you an Olympian then?
No, because Kylie and Astrid were my pilot and brake woman, and had there been an incident, I was in the wings. I did get to compete in the Europa Cup, and I was on the Olympic team.
Wow.
But yeah, I did not compete in the Olympics, but
well,
I was there, and
I think that's
you.
Pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
There you go. That sums you up. You're a competitor. You're someone who's got passion and drive, and you're always
Thank you, Christian.
You're always going to be a winner, and that's I can't say any more than that you are, and that's what you're doing, and then that's what it takes, and that's if people are listening to this, if they really want to work it out, get your craft sorted out, understand light, color, composition, all that sort of stuff, and then go like a gun to get what you want, because it's not going to come to you. You've got to go out and grab it by the whatever's and make it. But this image is beautiful, and I'm assuming it's Iceland, the deltas there, and the reason I love this is because I've flown over there myself, and I could not get anything as good as that. And I've gone through all my catalogue recently, all my Iceland shots I did from there, and I'm going, where the hell do these people see this? Yeah. And I flew over it. It was right there in front of me, but that one was so beautiful. I just loved the softness of it, because all the ones that I was trying to edit were quite harsh, and I could never get the color right. So I loved it for that reason. I loved the shapes, and I loved the way that it flows so beautifully. It's very feminine. I find
it's stunning.
Well, I'm very, very lucky. I have to be honest. I haven't done. I've almost done nothing to this image. It was those colors. The light was soft, and it was very, very fortunate.
I was going to say it's a shame you didn't do more editing, because it could be so much better than that.
You're a harsh man.
And see, that's a testament to your ability, that you don't have to do much editing, whereas people like Tom and I have to do so much more anyway.
Hey, steady on.
Tom just hits auto on Lightroom, doesn't he?
No. Well, I shoot on P for professional on my camera, and I just aren't you supposed to use auto in Lightroom? That's what I was taught.
Definitely. But
that's beautiful.
Shot. And what do you think? What's your what draws you to that shot, Mieke? Is that one of your big sellers? Is that one of your favorites, or did I pick wrong?
No, I love it because it is almost completely nature-based, and I know we all sit on different stages of the spectrum between remaining faithful to nature and being our true artist self. And I'm often tempted to shift myself on the scale, but ultimately the thing that I love most about when nature presents something like this to me is that I feel privileged to be there in that moment to capture its beauty. And so, that's why this is one of my favorite images, because it's nature's art. It's like, I've got the skill to capture it. I was in the right place to capture it, and that's me. But really, the artistry is nature. And for me, that's an important part of the process is, the privilege of being there and seeing nature in its full, artistic glory is always going to fill my heart with joy. More
when
so
you were
than
there,
the editing.
Yeah, when you're in Iceland and you saw all those glaciers, did you kind of feel like pulling the bobsled out and going for everything?
Funnily enough, no, I was quite comfortable to stay in.
Yeah, that'd be a one-way trip.
Yeah. Yep.
Funny. Yeah, beautiful.
Look, I'll grab the screen back and I'll
yep. I'll kill that. No problem.
If I randomly disappear at any point, it's because my phone's run out of batteries. I do apologise.
You're excused.
Thank you.
So the last one is the aerial photograph. That was the first aerial photograph that I can remember seeing. That it made me feel sick when I looked at it.
Oh, I'm with you, Christian. This is freaking mind blowing.
This is one of Tony Hewitt's, and it was probably one of the first. It would be the first image that I saw that made me think, my God, I need to take aerial photographs, because that is just
insane.
Sublime. Just beautiful to look at, and just the way that mist is rolling across that field. And look, this is just taken out of Perth and the 2J or York or something like that. Sorry?
The hot air balloon, I think he took it out of.
Yeah, shot from the hot air balloon. And when I saw that print, I just went, "Wow, Tone, that's something else." And I still love it today. And I love the fact that you know what it is, but again, it's that scale of that really does it for me. So I love the really small little trees, which we know are bigger trees, and they've got little sheep over it on the left there and stuff. And then the trees just poking out through the fog as it sort of twists up and rises up the land. It was arguably still one of my favorite landscapes of all time, and I must get
so ethereal.
Yeah, so painterly, isn't it?
Yeah, it just.
Tony is he's the man. I mean, he's done so many aerials. Obviously, he did his Girt by Sea project, which was it was all hush hush until it was up and going, and until I think I got back. And what a task to go, to get given the opportunity to get in a plane and fly for a month around the whole coast of Australia photographing that. It's just like, wow.
Unbelievable.
And
that's serious stamina. I mean, I've spent 4 hours in a plane over Lake Eyre, and that's pretty full on. But to spend 5, 6, 7 hours in plane for a month, day after day after day, I can't believe that. I don't know that I'd be able to do that, to be honest.
Brutal.
No, I need a toilet.
Is that so he can claim all the compositions as his own? Or
I think so. He's ruined it for everybody.
He can't do it. Tony's already done it. He's done the whole coast, so that's it.
Well, he didn't go inland though. Still got inland.
That's right. He's going to be. So that was Girt by Sea. The other one would be Girt by Guts, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so people don't know, there's a beautiful book he's created from it. And there was an exhibition that was traveling on the whole country of 100 large framed images. It was probably one of the biggest scale exhibitions I've seen traveling Australia, actually. Yeah. And it was, what was Glenn's last name? So it was Tony and...
it was Tony
Dennis
and
Glennon.
Dennis Glennon.
Dennis Glennon, that's right. Yeah, and they've done some beautiful poetic sort of wording to go with their work. It's a hell of a story. Canon supported the whole thing, and I was sort of wondering how I went up to Tony afterwards and said, "How'd you go from phase 1 down to Canon?" He was like, "They're paying for the trip." Fine by me.
Yeah, and the thing is that the work was so good that it didn't. When you look at the prints, they didn't suffer at all because the landscapes were so amazing, and the editing was so amazing. And I've always said this about Tony. He's always finished a print really well. So whenever you see his prints come up in APA, it's always the highest standard. And I don't know how he does it and it shits me every time I see his prints. Like it makes me, it's like a little dagger in the heart where you just go, oh, why does that look so good? Or why can't I make a print like that? And but he's one of these guys that loves to labour the point and to go to the nth degree. And I've seen him sitting there just rubbing light slowly into one little spot, and he'll go to another spot and he'll rub. And I'm sitting there going, oh man, just stick a bloody, bit of levels and just a broad brush and stick it right over it. That's probably why he's
Sounds
so
like
good,
the difference between Scotty and me as well.
Yeah. So
I was in a session with Tony the other day online, a Q&A, and I asked him exactly that. I said, how the hell do you finish your prints, Tony Hewitt? Because as soon as I see it on the wall, I know it's yours, whether I've seen it or not. He didn't quite answer it, but at the same time, it's really utterly striking when you get to that level of finesse of finishing it.
And it's not crazy Photoshop techniques. It's all just a brush painting light and dark into the image to make it pop, to give it that dimensionality. So he's a legend, that boy.
Yeah, he is.
There's actually
a really at the same time.
Sorry. There's a really good question in the chat. Can I bring it up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So Erin asked, does everyone use wide angle lens, fixed focal or zoom when up in a plane? And I would say to Erin, wide angle is a bad idea for shooting out of a helicopter and a plane because you've got the rotator on the helicopter that will get in with a wide angle, and you've got the struts underneath you. And so you're going to get a whole heap of artifacts in your image that you don't want and will end up having to crop out. I use fixed focal length lenses. What about everyone else?
I use fixed.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's sort of like if I was going to say to someone the first time they're starting out, if you've got like a 24-70 in it and like a 2.8, you're on the money. Not many people have a whole series of lenses. Very difficult or potentially even dangerous to change lenses mid-flight. You might not have two bodies. And if you don't understand and you're starting out, like you have to use the plane as a very expensive zoom if you don't have one on your lens. And another way to maybe go down the middle is a nifty 50. I actually shot the entire of the Lake Eyre book, or my section of it, on just a little nifty 50. It's quite versatile, and it has a capacity to fit quite well between the struts and on the planes in particular. And the big trade-off that you have all the time is that dance between shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. And really, to me, shutter speed's king. And where the lenses come into it is you want to have a high shutter speed as high as you enable yourself, because there's no disadvantage in having a lower one. And if it's too low, you'll get blurry images, as Mieke and all of us know well about. So it's worth sacrificing other things just to keep your shutter speed up. But if you have a fixed lens, they generally open up a lot wider and let more light in. So you have a little bit more leeway in terms of making the most out of light that's available. And they generally tend to be, within reason, a little bit optically sharper as well. And people like Tony, I think, use like Zeiss lenses and they just tape them focus-wise and just manual focus.
Yeah, I think the other advantage for most of the fixed focal length lenses is because they don't use the autofocus mechanism. Infinity is infinity. So as long as you're high enough off the ground, you can literally just keep your lens on infinity and not have to refocus.
And that's a huge advantage being in places like Lake Eyre, where there's very little sometimes for the camera to click onto to get focus. It can be a very benign landscape. You don't have a lot of contrast. So people, I've taken clients up there, workshop participants, and they're like, oh, I had trouble focusing on that part. And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't. And realizing that I'm the one shooting with a manual focus lens. It doesn't even have autofocus. But the fixed focal length. One thing I wanted to say about that too is that I've mainly shot on a fixed focal length around a 60 millimeter sort of focal length, which is just the conversion from my Pentax down to digital SLR. And I've tried shooting with a zoom, and I've found that a lot of the time I'm stuffing around so much trying to get the cropping exactly right, zooming in and out, that I end up missing the shot. So I like the idea of just having the fixed focal length and just composing in camera. And I've shot that way for, since I did my first professional job.
And just telling the pilot to go up and down.
Yeah, that's right. Can we go up this time and do another loop,
Yeah, and just make sure the pilot knows that you mean to take the plane up and down and not him.
Whatever.
I actually had a question on YouTube as well, just around whether or not you've looked into gyro stabilizers or anything like that to get extra stabilization.
Don't use them.
I was going to do a shoot over Hong Kong and Tokyo until I realized how much it was going to cost, and then I wasn't. But that was going to be at night. So I needed something to stabilize. Even your best camera with your best ISO capabilities wasn't going to cut it. I looked into using that, hung up the top of the chopper. And but then I went and got a quote for the chopper at night, which is a special permit, and went, well, I'll put that one down to my retirement flight.
Take Paulie along. Take Paul along. He's got stacks of cash. He'll pay for it.
I think it was 10,000 US an hour.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the only time I've looked into gyro.
Yeah, and look, for that price, you can buy the SL2, which has a 5.5 stop stabilized sensor, and I've handheld that thing and got sharp shots at half a second.
Here we go. What brand is that, please, Christian? Just repeat that again. Just tell us that 3 times over. Just a Leica. Are you sponsored by Leica by any chance?
No, but I bought one.
That's why I'm looking forward to using the Fuji, because it's also got the stabilization built into it, and seeing if I can, use that possibly later in the day or.
Yeah, no, you won't, mate. Not with the Fuji.
I feel like it's two guys that have come to a sword fight and they're, sparring off against each other here.
I've heard an argument with the stabilization that maybe the action of the plane is a stabilization that the lenses aren't actually designed to counteract. Has any of you guys, maybe it sounds like you use manual lenses, but have you tried stabilized lenses or camera bodies and noticed a massive difference?
No, I haven't used mine on a plane yet, but I can tell you about the stable. If you get one of those stabilizers, like a gyro to put on. I was with, I'm not sure if it was Les Walking or Nick Raines, can't remember, one or the other. But the thing wanted to keep it upright, so they're trying to pull the camera, turn the camera down to point down a little bit, and it was resisting, and it was difficult to use, and a pain. So and it was heavy, and just up your ISO and up your shutter speed, and away you go.
Yeah,
up your camera system to it.
Just go and shoot out a Lake Air where you can shoot at a thousandth of a second, f8 ISO 200.
That's right, middle of the day.
Just bang.
Yeah, just clone the shadow of the plane out of all your shots.
Well, time of day is an interesting part of it. Like in traditional landscape photography, we tend to aim for the early and late, but it is one of the genres that I really do feel, depends on where you are, really lends quite beautifully to midday light. And I sort of didn't realize that at first, and I was quite resistant to it. I was thinking, how is this going to work? But when you have all that creative freedom to just let go of all the stretching of the technical elements that you're constantly juggling with in lower light, to just know that you're getting the best that your camera system is capable of producing and out of the optics and ISO, get the ISO down. It's such a nice feeling to just forget about that side of things and just focus on the creativity and your compositions in the moment.
Absolutely. Paulie, we might need to keep things moving along.
That's it.
Yeah.
Good thing he's here. We'll be here all night.
I know. Well, I have to say thanks to everyone who's still here, because it's like a half hour over and we're still.
We've done a number of shows till 10 already, so
I didn't realise that there was a time limit. I thought we were pushing through till midnight.
We've never given a time.
No, that's midnight. That's midnight WA time as well. I'm talking WA time.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Christian will be on his 5th Baileys. No, but Mieka's right. There's still 55 participants on board, which is awesome. So,
plus all the YouTubers.
Right.
Yeah,
awesome.
YouTube's going strong.
All right, Mieke, looks like you're up.
So this shot was actually the West Kimberley. The East Kimberley is well known for these structures. It's basically, it's really hard to know what it is unless you know what it is, but having lived in the Kimberley, there's this whole intertidal zone that if you tried to walk on it, most of the year you'd sink up to your knees in wet mud. And during the wet season, it dries out, and it dries out depending on how much, you know, rain and how much water is in the system. And so the water drains out, and as you can see here, it drains out, you know, in this perspective from the top down, and it creates like these tree-like structures. And so the ridge around the tree is like wetter mud, and then towards the center of the branches of the tree is salted dry mud. And this particular one I really like because it's got a bit of a halo of I guess more recent mud around the top, which kind of makes it like a halo tree.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can move on to the next one.
So good.
So this is actually a 3-stitch pano. I went on a family holiday with my wonderful family to New Zealand. It wasn't a photography trip. Most of my photography happens specifically on photography trips, but this one was a family adventure, and we went and flew with air safaris over Lake Tekapo, and it was just a sightseeing flight. And then as we came back, we flew over this, and I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my, and I didn't realize that these braided rivers existed in New Zealand. Like, I'd had a little bit of a look, and I'd found some near Lake Wanaka, and I'd already booked a flight for that, but I didn't realize it looked like this. And all the way home that night, I was just talking and talking and talking. Oh my gosh, it was just amazing. And all my family were like, you've really got to go back and shoot that because you're not going to rest. And so I did. I drove back the next day, organised a flight in like an air cargo plane, shooting out the door on the side. And yeah, it's the incredible thing about this, like what Scott said, you know, going back and doing further research, this to me looks like a volcano erupting, but the water looks incredibly cold. And I love that contrast of like volcanic and ice. And I wanted to call it Deadly Beauty. And I thought, well, I kind of want to know how cold that lake is. And I did a bit of research, and it turns out that there are bodies in that lake that have never been recovered because it's so cold that the bodies don't rise to the surface.
Holy cow.
Well, that's where the New Zealand mafia dump
Pardon?
The New Zealand mafia dump all the bodies, do they?
Well, maybe we're giving them ideas. But no, actually, there's this crazy story about this one kayak that's actually been responsible for 2 missing people that are presumed dead at the bottom of Lake Tekapo.
I did not know that. That is cool. I will not look at that the same now when I go back there. I'm going to be looking for the bodies.
Very interested in this.
Yeah, so for people who don't know much about the braided rivers, what it is the glacier, as the glacier comes down the mountain, it scrapes the rock at the bottom, and that rock becomes like flour, dust. And that flour, as it drains out in the water towards the lake, it causes this suspended sediment, which refracts the light differently. And so you get more of the blue-green end of the spectrum as it is. But here you can see it's quite milky. And in certain places, you'll see later on in Iceland, for example, when it interacts with other elements like iron or sulfur or whatever, that changes the color. But yeah, it's basically just water with suspended rock elements in it that causes that milkiness. The thing that I think is crazy about this photo is, to me, it looks like the roots of the volcano are going down, but actually the water is flowing up because it's flowing towards the lake. So to me, it just kind of does my head in. And I'm hugely influenced by MC Escher, and I see so much of his ideas about mathematics and art and everything in the braided rivers. So yeah.
Mieke, I wanted to ask you, as well as others, how often do you find yourself rotating images to find the right orientation? Because obviously we shoot it one way, we might shoot it vertically, we might shoot it horizontally from a particular angle. How often are you saying to yourself, well, what's the best orientation from this? Is it upside down, or is it the right way up, or is it horizontal, flip it, whatever? Do you do a lot of that?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on how well you captured it in the first place. Like I recently saw you speak about adjusting the perspective, and I haven't actually done much of that. So I've been quite limited by how well I was shooting straight down. Now that I know a bit more, have that in my head about adjusting the perspective, I might change my tactics. But if you don't shoot straight down, you're really a little bit limited, because your brain tells you very quickly what up is.
It does, yeah, you're quite right.
Yeah,
100%.
But if I've shot straight down, I don't mind flipping it, like I don't mind rotating it, but I guess I'm kind of stuck on my landscape nature feelings, and I generally don't flip.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I know 95% of the time I'm the same. I'll stick with the same orientation that I shot in.
I flip constantly.
Right, okay, there you go.
This one is Iceland, the Braided Rivers. It was originally a just a normal full frame image that I did compress for the panel awards, because I can see a dragon in it, and I actually entered it in the AIPP state awards, and they didn't talk about my dragon, and I was very upset about that, because
don't you hate that? I hate when they don't see your animal. You're like, how?
It's there. So if you can't see the dragon, look for the really dark black area towards like middle right of the frame. It's got like a that's the eye, and then there's a nostril and a mouth and flames coming out.
That's stunning. That is absolutely stunning.
Thank you. But yeah, the colors, it's black sand, and the yellow is interaction with sulfur, and the red is interaction with iron, and the blue is, anyway.
Magnificent.
Awesome.
Yeah. Special.
Thank you.
It's a happy dragon.
It is a happy dragon. It looks like a luck dragon.
It is.
And this was actually taken the same day, different area, same flight, and it's the Braided Rivers again. It's very textural. We were very lucky that there was a bit of a wind, and the surface of the water was quite rippled. When I did enter this in the AIPP awards, there was some discussion about whether I'd added a texture or not, and I was like, no, this is real. What I did do though is instantly I saw a heart, and I actually saw a feminine face looking down, like a profile of a face, a very stylized face. Yep. And so to me, it's like a weeping, like sad person within a heart, a broken heart.
Did they pick up on the face in the judge?
Pardon?
Did they pick up on the face when?
No, but they did at least see the heart. So that was, that was enough for me. But there were also comparisons to like Georgia O'Keeffe, which was hugely complimentary, I felt. So it is a very feminine aerial, and I guess that's something that I do subconsciously. But these colours are natural. It is how it is. So yeah.
Beautiful.
This is one of my earliest aerials. It was from a trip to Kaditanda Lake Eyre in 2015, and I just like its simplicity. It is quite textural. I did print it last year for the first time, and I was like, why did I not really do anything with this image before? But it's very simplistic. It almost looks like a long exposure of a seascape or something like that, but it's not. It's obviously a high shutter speed, but to me it's the pastels and the subtlety that attract me. I think if you put this on the wall in any room, you would instantly feel peace.
Yeah. It's very hard to pull off images like that are quite subtle and simple, but that does it. Really nails it.
Thank you. So I got to pick one of Paul's, and I'm thrilled to talk about this. I love so much about this image, the textural nature of it. Firstly, you've got really grainy, bubbly, like rocky texture juxtaposed with this beautiful, really liquidous areas, and the two really work well together. So you've got like the really rocky areas, and then it's almost like whirled up water but there's so much about this that I love. I love that you can almost see faces. They're almost like skeletal faces within some of the areas in the purpley colours. And there's actually a lot of colour in this that I really like. It's blues and purples and pinks and a little bit of like yellowy kind of colours. Even though it looks quite monochromatic, there's so much packed in there. I really like the strong diagonal. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about it, but it just, the composition of it is fantastic. I really, the texture is like so strong in it, but it's got shape, pattern, color, everything that you want in an aerial. So yeah, awesome job, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a coal mine, actually. It's an open cut coal mine. And there is actually, it was a big drain pipe that was just pouring out this like liquid silver goop that was just flowing in and around, and somehow it was just metamorphosizing in and around and underneath the more gritty sort of solid structures. It was like nothing I've ever seen. And this is the kind of image that wouldn't be the same half an hour later, even 10 minutes later it'd be different, because it was literally liquid in areas and moving around and hardening in the spot. So that was that was an image out of the black and blue exhibition that's been traveling around Australia.
Yeah, and I wanted to include this because I don't think he's a very well-known aerial photographer, Andrei Ermolov. He's a Russian photographer, but I saw his work on 500 Pix when I used to be on 500 Pix back in maybe
back in the day,
2014 or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, because it's clearly, he when you look at his work, and I do suggest you go and have a look at his website, he's very much a nature photographer. He really hasn't, I don't think he's done a lot of processing, and it's nature's art. And when I first saw it, I really didn't believe it, but it certainly made me really want to go to Iceland. And then everyone and his dog went to Iceland in the next few years. And then I was like, well, I don't really want to go to Iceland anymore, because I feel like I've seen Iceland without seeing Iceland, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Tanya and I talked about going to Iceland, and we talked and talked and talked, and then we started researching, and then we were like, we really, really, really need to go. Let's save like everything we have and not go anywhere for as long as we need to, so that we can go and do 2 shoots. And really, we planned out our whole entire trip around 2 shoots. We basically got in touch with the helicopter company, and they didn't have a helicopter at the time. I think it was like 3 months later that they got a helicopter, but they had the plane, and they were the only company that was flying where we wanted to go. We did check all other places, but no, this was the mob. And we got in touch with them and basically said, look, we're planning our entire trip around 2 flights with you, so please give us first preference. Anyway, we rocked up the first day, and the conditions looked awesome for the next day. So we were like, can you get us in tomorrow morning? And she's like, oh no, we're booked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can you please check? Because, I've been in touch with the pilot for the last, 5 months about doing it. Anyway, she's like, oh no, you're on the list.
Yeah, it was you who was booked.
It was booked. Oh my God. But honestly, my temperature probably went up like 20 degrees. I was like, no, this can't be happening. So yeah, this was one of the places we flew over, and it was just, absolutely spectacular.
Yeah,
I've seen that place before.
It's still on my bucket list.
Oh, Paul, you're going to love it, mate, when you get there.
I know. It's a bit like that, Mieke. I was sort of like, do you go? Because it's already been done. But at the same time, I don't kind of think that way. It's like, well, I haven't done it.
No, that's so much to shoot.
And you know what? I think
my eye and my timing. So.
I think the longer you shoot, the more you get over that idea that everyone's seen everything and everyone's done everything, because really, like, the first time you see it is the first time you see it. And if you've got a strong enough voice in your photography,
you can express yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, speaking of which.
Yes.
Beautiful shot, Tommy.
All right.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard going last after you legends have bloody shown off all your great work.
Save the best to last.
No way, not at all. I feel these are far inferior. But anyway, let me give it a shot. Talking of Iceland, this was Iceland. We shot back in May 2018. We'd done a trip to Faroe Islands, run a workshop there, been 12 days on Faroe Islands, and then realized that we could fly from Faroe Islands directly to Reykjavik within, you know, it only takes an hour. And I hit up my pilot, his name's Volcano Pilot, Harold, on, well, his name's Harold, and his Instagram is Volcano Pilot. Look him up, super nice guy. And I did similar to Mieke, you know, like planned, you know, 5 days in Iceland to just go flying once, and rocked up the first day, chatted with him on the phone, and he said, look, it's looking sketchy, but I'll keep in touch with you. And then literally the next morning he calls me and he goes, if you can get here within an hour, you've got yourselves a plane flight. If you're not here within the hour, you can forget about it, because the rest of the week is looking rat shit. And so I literally said, look, we'll be there in 10 minutes. And we raced from our hotel down to the airport, you know, went into this, you know, nondescript sort of little room building, and found in there and chatted and bantered for ages, and talked about where to go and what to do and how much it was going to cost, and negotiation back and forth, et cetera, and then got up in the plane and spent 2.5 hours flying over the sort of southern coastline of Iceland. And it was phenomenal. And I was so nervous at one stage, I think he got Jack of hearing the wind coming through my microphone. So he just reaches over in front of me, pulls it out of the plane socket, and then just starts piping his classical music on his iPod through the headphones. And that's what happened for the remaining sort of 2 hours of the flight. We didn't really speak, other than him just, you know, me just doing this, saying, let's go around again. And him going, yep, that's okay. And then me just going like this, which means I'm done with that, let's move on. And he just took me to all the places. I didn't even have to ask anything. He was such an awesome pilot. I'd love to fly with him again soon. And the irony of this shot is that it's been so successful for me in awards. This was the sort of cover image they used for the International Photography Awards last year, where I won both the aerial photographer as well as nature photographer. And yet I can't remember taking this photo, which I hate, because I feel like I can remember taking every other shot in my whole bloody career. And yet this one here, I can't even picture where it is as such. But, you know, it's just one of those images that people are drawn to. I called it River of Fire. And you know, it's done very well for me. We sell it as a limited edition print. And in fact, it became my highest selling print only in the last couple of weeks since we opened up, since COVID. So it's done very well for me. And I'd love to go back to Iceland and shoot more. In fact, we were supposed to be there only a few weeks ago running a workshop there, an aerial photography workshop. So I should really be standing here with about 10,000 more Iceland aerials, but that'll have to wait for another time.
Well, you'll have to do with the 10,000 you've got already.
No, I don't have that many. This one here, I tried to choose a few of my images that were perhaps iconic, but also perhaps ones that you hadn't seen before. This is actually taken down in the Tarkine. I flew over there October 2016, did a little few flights over there. And this Which here part, is, Tom? What's that?
Which part?
All of it, I feel.
Where'd you fly out of?
We flew out of Wynyard, and we went from Arthur River all the way down to the Pieman River. So that whole coastline I did twice, I think.
Was that after the fires?
This is after the fires, I believe. I think the fires have gone through this part, and these are all of the taller dead trees sticking up above all of the forest below.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting how that happened.
Yeah, so that's the look you're getting, and of course I've darkened it and added contrast and really lightened the trees there to create what looks like a sort of S curve. So it's not one of my more popular images, but I think it's a little bit more abstract and a little different to what I
love it.
Used to seeing from me. So this actually got entered into the Head-On Landscape Awards a few years ago and was one of the finalists there. So I've not shown it off a lot. I've not entered it in many awards, but yeah, it's different. This one here was from Namibia last year, where I ran a workshop, and ever since I ran a workshop there and saw you there, Mieke, back in 2017, we chartered this plane to take the participants from Sossusvlei over the dunes and up the coastline, up the Skeleton Coast to Swakopmund, and it saves about a day's worth of driving on rough roads. And so many people so many participants on that first trip decided that they wanted to take the chartered flight rather than going in the car. Why wouldn't you? That there wasn't enough room for Mary and I to travel in the planes. So we took the road and these guys took the planes and land, and how was it? And they're talking about all the great photos they got. And I think Toby Nichols said to me, oh, we went over these really interesting salt works. You'll love them. And he's showing me the photos and I'm like, oh my God, what are they? I couldn't believe it. And no doubt you've seen many of those sort of photos already. They're on my website. They're very red in color, very much different to Useless Loop and Shark Bay, for example. And the following year, we went back, said, right, we're going to shoot this. I'm going to charter a helicopter out of Swakopmund to shoot Walvis Bay, which is nearby. And the helicopter company didn't have any helicopters available. They had a safari with a rich Chinese man who had come to Namibia and chartered the helicopters for a whole month. It was like $120,000 charter US, right? He just chartered the planes, helicopters for a month and just went flying and shooting aerials in Namibia. So totally missed out on that. So the third year, being last year, we went, totally hit him up, said, we're going. And look, things didn't come out as planned. Of course, it gets a lot of fog, Swakopmund, because you've got the heat of the desert coupled with the coolness of the ocean, much like San Fran, right? And it gets fogged in constantly. And this particular day that we'd booked, the fog was there, and I was really hoping that we'd be able to fly at 1,500 feet and get really great penetrating sunlight. Instead, it was fogged down to about 500 feet. It was really sketchy, and but it worked quite well for us in a sense that the photographs still look really good, even though a lot of them are shot under fog. But I've not done a lot of aerial photography where I've actually shot with this speckled cloud, which I think adds an extra dimension to the photos, and I actually really like it. And especially if you can get that cloud reflecting over, you know, salt ponds where you can see the clouds in the salt ponds themselves. This one here I called Wink. And I'm not one of those people that can easily see faces and things in photographs. I know there's a name for it, I forget the name. But to me, I see a whole lot of faces with noses in between. And every time I show this picture to camera clubs, etc., I say, what do you see? And the range of different sort of, most often people say faces, but the range of different, you know, suggestions we get is, we've also had people describe it as being teeth and molars, you know, worn down molars, or the roots of the teeth underneath the you know, the gum. Or in fact, we've had people talk about it perhaps being, you know, grass, and you're seeing the roots of the grass penetrating down into the earth. So yeah, that's an interesting one. It's a little bit different again from me as well, but probably one of my favorites. And, right, so this one here, this became sort of, so let me confess that I more recently become inspired by doing aerial photography through the work that the Light Collective guys did at Lake Eyre. You know, if you'd said to me, go to Lake Eyre and shoot aerials, I would have said, what the hell would you do that for? It's just a big wide expanse of nothing. Well, as we now know, it's anything but, and those guys proved it as such with their fantastic work they did back in, I think, mid-2016, wasn't it, Paul?
Yeah, 2016, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so with that, I was inspired to go and shoot it myself. In fact, I'd flown over Lake Eyre on in a light plane back in 1988, I think it was, as a keen bird watcher going up to Inaminka and Coonji Lakes and photographing up there and bird watching up there. So I'd flown over the lake before, but obviously this was, you know, I'm more interested in aerial photography than ever before now. And so with that, I went up October 2016 and did a series of flights over Lake Eyre. And since then, I've done over 60 hours over the lake. So I know it pretty well. This was shot back in that second flood that came through in June of last year. And this is where these mound springs that are literally mounds, I realized were such because the water was actually surrounding these. So the second flood pushed the water up enough that it was surrounding these mound springs. And when you looked, you know, across at the landscape rather than looking straight down, and you saw these springs, you could see them as mounds just poking up above the water as you looked all the way along the west coastline there. It was incredible. And this one here is one of those, perhaps, you know,
Oh, I lost your sound. Did anyone hear Tom?
No. Is there Tommy? He's frozen.
His batteries run out.
No, he's back.
Who's that one?
Oh, you froze, mate.
Oh, all right. It says my internet connection is unstable, and I've got no idea why, because I'm in the same place that I've always been. Is it okay now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, right. So how much of that did you hear or not hear?
I missed just the last little bit.
Right. So yeah, fortunately enough, the water was shallow enough that you could still see the texture of the salt underneath. You see, without the water there, that brown around the edge would just be white, which I photographed this particular mound spring 2 or 3 times, and that's what it's been like. And with that water that was in the lake, it had caused this bleeding in the mound spring as well that I'd not seen before. And so this one I called Nature's Eye, and we put it on a postcard that we used to advertise an exhibition that I had here in the gallery last year. We did 12 large format prints, you know, some as high as 2 meters. And this was a big square print that we did as 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. We actually sold 2 of these out of the exhibition. Again, it's a limited edition, just of 10. And because I couldn't afford the framing to put all of these images on the wall, we actually magnetized them to the wall just as, you know, bare prints. And I'd always wanted to do an exhibition where I either had them magnetized to the wall or I put, you know, big wooden clothes pegs and hanging them from wire or string. And so we did that. And the number of people that were just blown away by the texture in these prints, but also wanted to touch them and even look at them side on and see whether they were embossed in some way, shape or form. It really works in our favor to have them unframed. That glass wasn't interrupting their view, and they really enjoyed this one as well.
Yeah.
I noticed
the
Shark Bay Inscription exhibition was a bit of an inspiration for how we exhibited the lake airwork, because we didn't want anything interfering with that really visceral kind of interactivity with the substance and texture of it. And it's a little bit of risk for longevity in a way, but at the same time, it's pretty raw and real and accessible. I love it.
Yeah, no, you're quite right there. They were all the words that I was going to use there, Paul. You stole them right out of my mouth.
Yeah, sorry, mate. And Tom, I remember because Tom and I ran workshops sort of back to back around each other around this time, and I designed the timing of that workshop. It was a little bit of a hit and run one, because I wanted to catch it actually after the flood had happened and the water was receding, because I feel like that's when a lot of these new features have just freshly formed, and there's a lot of bleeding and movement and all sorts of new sort of shapes and configurations that are just starting to come alive and just starting to dry out, while you still get the benefit and beauty of the water as well. It worked really well, I thought, Tom.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know, Lake Air is one of those places that I don't think you're going to be disappointed regardless of when you go. Whatever time of year, whether there's water in it or not. Some of the best shots I've got were from, when did we go? August, a couple of years ago. No water in it whatsoever. And, you know, there's some fantastic images from that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Funny, I did it August 2 years before that, and it was the driest I've ever seen it, and some of the best material I've ever got. It's sort of
right.
There's no, it's the biggest artist palette I've ever come across.
It's unbelievable. It's so good. This one here is from Namibia a couple of years ago, where we flew on that scenic flight, as I was telling you there, and we had a great plane, but we couldn't get the doors off, or the, you know, the window, open the windows or anything like that. It was a scenic charter that went for about an hour and a half. There was just no opportunity to shoot through anything other than the windows. And it was an overcast sort of day, and the files really didn't look like this. They were quite flat, but I could see the potential in the shots where you had this light penetrating through the clouds. And I thought, oh, I reckon if I play with those a little afterwards, they'll work okay. And there was a series of 4 or 5 images here that I took out of this shoot. You know, they took them within 5 minutes of each other, probably. That I really loved, with a bit of dehaze. It just brought out this amazing color and this amazing tonality between light and dark that I just absolutely love.
Yeah, it's a killer, man. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, one of these images ended up winning me the Outdoor Photographer of the Year in the UK a few years ago. So
yeah, different format, wasn't it, Tom? Like, maybe was that a horizontal? Or?
There was a horizontal one, yeah. This is the vertical one that probably not many people have seen, but the other one was a horizontal, and it was quite red. Yeah. Now this one here, which we've seen already by my good friend Christian Fletcher. Boring, Jesus. No, actually, Christian, I have to admit, it's not my absolute favorite of yours. One that particularly comes to mind that I think I've seen in one of your books. Did you call it Stingray?
It would look like a stingray. Yeah.
The dam, the red dam. with the you know, the cultivation around it, something like that. I call it stingray. Maybe you don't call it stingray. But anyway, I couldn't find it on your website, so I don't know why it's not there. Yeah, you might want to look into that, dude. You're missing out on big sales. Yeah. But you know, I found it hard to find, you know, to grab any of or choose one of Christian's, I should say, because there's so many good ones. I mean, I really, I guess you come to admire a photographer, and I could say this on behalf of everybody on this chat tonight, that when you look at their photograph and you say, Jesus Christ, I wish I'd shot that. That's when you really, I think, have an appreciation for who they are as a photographer. And I, as I said, you know, there's Paul's, Mieke's, Scotty's, you know, a lot of the aerial photographers that I follow, I think the same. I just go, God, I wish I'd taken that photograph. I mean, if I had that hanging on the wall of the gallery here, I'd just, you know, stand next to it and gloat all day long. It's but Christian, a lot of Christian's work is like that, and I've known Christians for a good 20-odd years. In fact, I approached him years ago to run workshops with me, and he knocked me back, the bastard. But
only because I couldn't talk in front of him.
Yeah, well, things have changed. You've got very good at that, mate.
Can't shut me up now.
No, literally, I idolized Christian all the way back in sort of the late 1990s when I was getting into panoramic photography, and of course, he was shooting a lot of that stuff at the time. And I love that he's gone in this genre of aerials, and we've done the same. But his stuff's world class, as we know.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last one,
Jackie Rankin.
This one here, Jackie Rankin. Yeah, we've spoken a little about her already at the start of the show. She actually sponsored me into the AIPP all the way back in 2003, 2004, something like that. And so I very heavily focused on her work and followed her closely. And I remember seeing this series of images that won her both Landscape Photographer of the Year back in 2003 and 2004. And she won overall Australian Photographer of the Year back in 2003 with these images. And perhaps a lot of you haven't heard of her, but she runs workshops out of Queenstown with her husband, Mike Langford, who I used to see back in the 80s doing commercial work and love his work anyway. These set of images are astounding, and there's a book, I hope that's still available, of all of these prints, which is just a beautiful book to get your hand on. And this is one that sticks out in my mind probably the most. It's called Winter Willows, and what I love about this is those beautiful shadows that fall on the landscape, and that beautiful sensual-esque curve in the print itself is amazing. And I think the fact that she's been able to do that without introducing, you know, any color is a testament to her as a photographer. Let me tell you about how she captured these images for those who don't know. This is taken.
Oh, I was about to tell that story. I'll let you do it.
Right, okay. Well, you'll probably tell it better than me, Paul, but let me give the short version, and then you can give the more eloquent one. But these are taken in Goulburn in New South Wales, their farmland in New South Wales, where her dad was flying. He's a pilot. I'm not sure if he's still around. And would fly, is it a tiger moth, Paul?
I think so.
Yeah.
And they would strap, you know, with the leather hats and the goggles, you know, like something out of the olden days, right? And because it was a low wing, or the double wing, whatever you want to call it, right? The only way that she could get these images looking straight down was for them to do what is called a loop. I mean, often we call it a loop, but that's actually an orbit, which is horizontally like that. The loop is totally upside down, and she would point the camera straight down at the landscape and take a shot at the very top of the loop, which is just incredible. I mean, I would throw my guts up and be telling the pilot to land straight away if they were doing that stuff and I was in the plane. So to think that, you know, she probably just really had one shot at it, and it was all probably really intricately done in terms of timing in order to get you in the exact position to get the exact shot you wanted, I think is remarkable. And there's one other image in this series that I absolutely love, which you must get to see. They're on her website, I think. There's one where she shot really, really late in the afternoon, and she's got on the far right-hand side a train line going down, which is very difficult to see that it's an actual train line because it's such a small part of the frame. But in the whole part of the image extending to the left is the shadow of the train across the whole image. It must have been shot like within minutes of the sun going down. It's an absolutely exquisite image. And it is my hope one day to purchase one of these prints from her and have them hanging in my home, because I think they're absolutely glorious images.
Yeah, I got a Janky Rankin sitting behind me.
Oof.
She's one of the most creative human beings I've ever met in my life. Like, you should see what she can do with a fry pan and a fork.
Chuck them up in the air and take photos of them. That's what she does.
Awesome omelets.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my set. That's my set.
Really? I mean, nicely done.
I was just looking at my sort of schedule for the rest of the show. So now that we've finished the introductions,
that's right. I told you we're going to go.
I haven't had dinner yet.
I just couldn't go through everybody's work. I'm thinking we might actually need a second show. I've got favorite.
That'd be great.
Favorite types of aircraft, best systems, times of day, best inspirations, favorite photographers in the world, special bodies of work, future of the sport, drone versus conventional.
Well, I'd be in, Paul, because there's so many other photographers that I'd love to talk about. Like, I mean, even just Western Australian aerial photographers, I could spend a whole 2 hours talking about. Like,
yeah, true. Yeah. I don't think Christian's done enough of talking about himself either, which is very unlike him. So, you know, I think we definitely.
Because I'm hungry, man. I want some dinner.
Look at it. He's over it. He's like, come on, let's wrap this one up. Let's do
another show.
Let's do another show. Let's do that.
No, absolutely.
That'd be bloody awesome. I'd love to do that.
I think there is a lot more to explore, and I feel like we've done a beautiful thing about the imagery. But I think what would be nice to go deeper into is the heart of the genre itself, and I guess our sensibilities of who's out there and the kind of processes we go and preparing ourselves, and the actuality of doing the work itself, how we research where we want to go, what inspires us, who are the great, you know, leaders of the genre in the world, where is it heading in the future, how do we see it sitting in Australia versus globally. There's a lot of meat. We've sort of done the potatoes, but I think we still need to do the meat.
I agree. It's probably
I'm talking about food, man. I'm
I kind of
coming from a vegetarian, so that's saying something.
I think in what we've covered tonight is a lot of great, you know, beautiful photographs that were shown, a bit of show and tell. But for those who are watching, they'd probably get so much value because they may well be inspired. I hope they would be inspired by what they've seen tonight from what was shown. And then they're like, right, I want to get into this. How do I go about this? What am I doing? Am I going out and buying a drone, or am I, you know, going down to my local airfield and tapping on someone's door? What do I do? And we can share so much more information about the journey that we've had and the experience that we've had that would make it so beneficial to the many people that are still watching tonight. I think it would be great for us to be able to do, you know,
if you guys are if you want, happy to come back, we'd be very gladly have you. So that'd be amazing.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, are we?
We just need to make sure Christian has his dinner first. So
don't want him getting hangry or anything like that.
It started at 6 o'clock.
Puts on his colostomy bag. Well, he was just talking about needing to go to the toilet.
For number one.
Yeah, so I feel like we've gone for a ride in the car, but we haven't really looked under the hood and talked about how the model works and where to buy one of your own.
Yep.
So it's kind of like top down in a way, but there's a lot of creative inspiration just from the characterization and the bodies of work, and I think starting to pull apart maybe some of those images as well, and the kind of construction and the techniques that it takes to get them. There is a bit to it. But I personally, there's nothing I enjoy more in the world, and I think in terms of landscape photography, it has huge scope still. There's so much of the world that still hasn't been explored from an aerial perspective, and it's so vast a country, and we have one of the best backyards and aerial destinations on planet Earth in Australia, just hands down.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think there's a few people who talk about aerial photography as a niche genre, and it's, you know, passé because everyone's done it and everyone's seen it, and I absolutely reject that 100%.
So do I.
Absolutely, it's not going anywhere.
I think we're right at the start. I got asked by somebody the other day, what happens when, you know, aerial photography has, you know, come and gone? And I said, well, hold on, you know, panoramic landscape photography engaged me for good on 15 years. If I'm 2 or 3 years into this aerial game and it keeps me engaged for another 10 or 15 years, I'll be bloody happy, you know, like I don't think it's going anywhere. I think drones have only popularized the genre, but I think that it'll only increasingly become that way because of that genre, you know, being so accessible to people, but also to the popularity of the images and
also the quality is improving so much as well.
So good. So
and
good.
it's just so artistic, you know, like how can it be a flash in the pan when it's pure art? Like
100%. I just love it. Yeah, I'm with you, Mieke. It's so pleasing to create a work of art from an aerial image where nature's done all the work for you, really. I mean, I know there's a lot of preparation that goes into taking the shots and skill involved, et cetera, but God, I can't see myself getting bored of this genre anytime soon.
No, if you've ever felt the adrenaline of hanging out the window at 200 k's an hour, there's nothing too forgetful about that experience. So I'm trying to translate it, Christian, into the little mosquito buzz of the drone while you're looking at it.
That could be exciting when your battery's low and you're a kilometre from home and you
definitely.
Scotty and I did a trip together where we just bought drones. We're like, what are these things? Are they any good? We both swore we'd never get one. And Christian let the cat out of the bag. I wasn't going to tell anyone I even had one yet, but he put up about it. But we went and pushed it. I reckon there's almost as much adrenaline as being out of a plane as when you realize that you're trying to land in the wrong spot and it's 2 kilometers away from where you are and your battery's already on zero. and you're flying illegally over a mining site somewhere you could get arrested for. You're currently hiding under a tree somewhere so you don't get caught by whoever's driving past asking questions.
No way.
While your mate's sitting there with the car ready to go, like, so you can just pretend like you're not flying while you are.
This is all a hypothetical, of course, mate.
That's right.
I think
maybe we live on YouTube at the moment?
Cut the feed. Cut the feed.
Cut.
But I have landed drones beyond 2.5 to 3 minutes past zero about 5 times.
No way. Oh, good. That's
not recommended. Definitely not recommended.
Right.
Battery's going to be stuffed.
Christian's no, you can't go under 30%. Isn't that right, Christian?
I'm borrowing your batteries right now, Paul, aren't I better watch it.
Alex just borrowed my batteries.
All right. Look, I think we might need to unfortunately wrap it up there, but it's been absolutely fantastic to have all of you join us tonight. We're very, very honoured to have you with us, and it's just been a thoroughly enjoyable evening, and to hear that everyone's keen to join us again is just an absolute fantastic thing. So we did have a couple questions. How would we access another session? When you logged in on your Zoom, when you registered for the Zoom, you would have got an email. That link will be the same link for the next meeting as well. So you don't need to re-register or anything like that. We'll also be on YouTube. This is being recorded, so you can obviously watch it back, or if you missed anything like that as well.
We'll share it if you'd like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us.
Oh, Tony Hewitt was on tonight.
Oh, hey, Tony.
Really? Hey, man. We need to get him on next time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bloody hell. We've talked enough about him.
Yeah, take me out and put Tony in because I'm friggin' hungry.
Eat, Christian. Look at you.
Probably a good idea that kept under the radar. We could have got pretty interesting with Christian on the show.
Yeah,
very good.
Scotty had to drop out. He had some technical issues, but he wanted to
ran out.
This is where we should be talking about him then, saying what we really think.
All right.
Yeah, he kept drinking those Coronas. What were the Coronas that he was drinking?
Oh my God, yeah.
No, but seriously, if you haven't seen his work, go and check out his website. He's an exceptional, very. I mean, we all know that, but if you don't know it.
Photography.
Yeah,
he's got coronavirus now after all those bloody beers.
All right, you're all legends, and I mean, Luke was on the money. I've been looking forward to this for ages, and it meant a lot.
It's been fun. Thanks for putting it together.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Yeah, it meant a lot that all of you guys just said yes straight away. You know, what can we do, and taking time out of your lives and dragging Mieke away from Matt, especially. You know.
Tommy, are you putting your invoice in, Tommy? What are you going to charge for this, Tommy?
Oh, mate, it's priceless. Right. How much I charge per hour? It's unbelievable. I'm more than happy to come back. More than happy to come back and do this again.
With that lighting, I'm thinking, you know, Tommy's sort of starting to get maybe the best rest of the show. Like,
yeah,
Christian's starting to go black because his blood sugar's getting too low.
Mate, I'm getting lower in the seat. Have you noticed?
Holy, my blood sugar. Are you talking about mine or Christian's?
Mine. Yours. You don't have blood.
I don't.
He was stuffing down corn chips at the start of the show, saying, "Is this going to take more than 45 minutes?" Because
I've only got a few left. That's my dinner.
Too funny. All right, guys.
All right, guys.
For hanging in there.
Thanks heaps for the invitation, guys. That was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So much.
Yeah, thanks,
Great
guys.
to
Great
see
to see
everyone.
Great to
Lots
see
of
all
my
you
favourites.
guys again.
Yeah.
Till next
Great to
time.
see you.
Same time next week.
Keep that smile on your face,
Bye.
Mieke.
Keep it
Hey.